Addicts. Like, hey, Scoob, did you hear Nikki Blake is hosting a Scooby-Doo panel? No. Yeah. Like on today's Scooby-Doo episode, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy meet Nikki Blake. Yeah, in a Scooby Panel. Like, we need to get this puppy started. Okay, Nikki Blake, take it away, Scooby-Doo.
Welcome to the Scooby Panel. I'm your host, Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com. I'm joined by Alexa LAWLOR and Wendy BRYDGE. And today we are talking to Carlton Zapp, who was the assistant to Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera. Carlton, it is amazing to have you. We are so excited to talk to you.
Well, I'm excited to kind of share some of the wonderful experiences that I had at the studio and continue to have with all the different people that are involved in animation. And, you know, just let it know I'm the son of Alma Dolores Clay, who's in heaven. And I just feel grateful to kind of just share the wonderful history of the studio of Hanna-Barbera, you know? Yabba dabba do it, you know what I mean?
Can you tell us about you? Where did you grow up and how did you end up in California?
Well, I grew up in a town called Orange, New Jersey, actually, in a housing project, a Gray Street housing projects. And my mom had 6 kids. And we also had my cousin's son, my young cousin, because she had some, you know, some drug problems. And so her son lived with us and my nephew lived with us. So it was 8 of us and it was a couple bedrooms in the projects. I grew up there. And then my brother, my oldest brother, who had a place in Brooklyn in Crown Heights in the Montgomery Street projects, I spent a whole lot of time there too. So I was in between New York and New Jersey a lot. And so, you know, that's where it started. And then, you know, when I start seeing some of the things that were going on in the neighborhood, and then I was also doing some DJing stuff and was getting pretty popular. And I just knew that I wanted to go somewhere else and make a better life for my mother. I wanted to get her out of the housing project because I seen how much she struggled and I wanted to make life better for her. And I would sacrifice whatever it was for that. And so that's really what drove me to come. In California, no, you know, I don't want to sound sexy, but on TV, all the girls are pretty and the weather's nice. I said, I'm going there, boy. And so that's what made me pick California.
That's funny. How did you meet Bill Hanna and Joseph Barbera, and how did you end up working for them?
Oh boy, you're going right to the big bag of potato chips right there, boy. You know, sometimes I get emotional telling this story. This, you know, when I talk to some of my friends who are in the industry and everybody says that this is the most extraordinary story that they pretty much heard and that this should be a book or something or a movie. But here it goes. When I first came out here, I went on a Greyhound bus, left back east on a Greyhound bus 4 days and came to Los Angeles not knowing one soul, not knowing nobody, with about $740 in my pocket. And I got downtown Los Angeles to the bus station and I just asked somebody, which way is Hollywood? They told me what bus to take and to get a transfer and go up to Highland and whatever. And I remember just going to Hollywood Boulevard and looking around like, whoa, and, you know, and saying, and seeing the Chinese theater and saying, wow, that was on Lucy and all that, you know, the Lucy show was just that kind of thing. And then I got a 1-room place off of Hollywood Boulevard that was like $65, I think, a week. But it was a real piece of crap. You know, homeless people laying on the street. This is before cell phones. They had a pay phone in the middle of the corridor. They also, everybody had to use one bathroom. And it was a real piece of crap. But you got to realize, and no disrespect to my family, you know, but I came from the housing projects, and not like I came from Beverly Hills. So, you know, the transition was not, it just was, it was manageable, let's say, for me. And so I did that. And then what I would do is every day I would go and look for work. And at night I'd go play ball at Hollywood High School because I was the man. I mean, we in New York, we played ball. So I would go and give it to them little Hollywood cats. And so one of the dudes, I'll never forget, it was mostly African Americans, but it was one white dude. He was good looking. He always had the best sneakers, but he wasn't no good really playing ball. But that was my man. And he would pick me up to play with him and we would beat all the good guys. So anyway, he would be the guy that tells me where to go. He would say, if you're looking for work, you need to go to UCLA and look on the board and all that. So one day he said, you should go and go to all the studios in the Valley. Just go to the studios. So I did. I went to Universal. I went to Disney. I went to Warner Brothers. And on the way back from Universal, I saw Hanna-Barbera. So I go in Hanna-Barbera and I go and say, can I fill out an application? The guy says, no, we're not taking applications. And I said, I mean, can I just fill out an application? And then he said, if you don't get out of here, I'm gonna call security. And so on the way out, I'm on the way out now, and I'm like, wow. And I'm down to about, I don't know, 65, 70 bucks left. And I'm like, I got to figure this out, or I'm gonna have to go back east. So I see an old man by the front of the gate where the guard booth is, and he's working with flowers. And I'm angry, so I'm kind of blowing off steam on the old man. I said, oh man, you don't know what you're doing with them flowers. And he said, what are you talking about? What do you know? I said, I know you got geraniums there and you need Dusty Millers. That indirect sunlight gonna kill them, old man. And he said, how do you know that? I said, I just came out here from New York. And I said, I used to steal flowers from my grandmother and I know about that stuff. And he said, what you doing here? I said, man, I came here and fill out an application. They won't even give me one. And he says, why do you think that is? I said, I don't know. I don't know what, you know, maybe I'm black. I don't know what it is. And he said, why would you say that? And I said, I don't really see people, a lot of people of color here. And he says, well, are you an artist? I said, no. He said, do you draw? Or do you do background or voiceovers? And he said, no. He said, well, why would they hire you? And I said, well, I got dignity. They got messengers. I said, they got people that work in the stock room. They got people that work in the mail room. At least let me fill out an application. And he said, well, what's your name? I said, my name is Carl. I said, what's your name, old man? He pointed up at the sign and he says, I'm Bill Hanna. I own this damn place. That was my intro to meeting Mr. Hanna. And then I tried to kiss his tail. I was like, Mr. Hanna, I'm a big fan of Scooby and Yogi and the Jetsons. And then he said, no, no, no. I like the way you talked before. He said, you were for real. I don't go for the BS. And so then he said, you got a phone, which I didn't, but I gave him the phone number of the payphone in the courtyard at that one place where I stayed. Now I'm mad at myself because I said, God hooked you up with the main man. You tell them you stealing flowers. You tell them because you black, they ain't gonna hire you. You call him old man, he don't know what he doing. He ain't gonna call you. You blew it. And I couldn't sleep. I was mad. I said, should I write him another note? You know, I just didn't know what to do. And then about 2 days later, one of the homeless guys down by the payphone said, anybody here named Carl? And I said, yeah. And he said, it's some old white dude on the phone, man. And when I went down, I tried to apologize to Mr. Hanna. He was laughing. He said, I love that kind of talk. And he said, come see me tomorrow morning in my office at 8:45. And I think it was, 8:45. He said, come be at my office at 8:45. And we're going to have a little talk. And I said, whoa, he really called. And so I was there real early. And he sat me down and he said, let me just talk to you and tell you. I couldn't sleep last night because your story resonated with me, but I want you to tell me your whole story from beginning to end about your family, how you decided to come out here and all that. And he listened. I told him the whole thing, beginning to end. I told him one of my cousins had AIDS, all that. I told him everything. Just told him the way it was. And then he looked at me and he said, I'm not a black kid that grew up back in New York or New Jersey. but I grew up in the Depression era, and I had to raise 6 sisters. I was the only boy. And then during the Depression, the little money you saved, it was wiped out. It was lost. He said, for years, I would put my money underneath the mattress because I didn't trust the banks. And then his eyes watered. He looked at me and he says, I'm going to help you get your foot in the door. He says, but if you mess up one time, don't say it's because you Black. Don't say it because nobody gave you a shot. Just say, well, I can get emotional. I'm thinking about him. Sorry.
Aw.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
He just had a big impact on me. And wow, I didn't expect that. But that's what he told me. And he kept his word. He kept his word. There were some things I had to deal with in the studio at that time. There was some people, not a lot, but there were some people who had some race issues and was trying to get me to react. And I was smart enough not to do that. And, you know, and they, because every time I thought of it, I thought I let my mother down or I thought I let Mr. Hanna down. So I just took it. They would say stuff, not when I say they, 90% of the studio was great, but that 10% let me know. And they would just say stuff like, wow, this place is really going downhill. They like Black guys here now and all that. They were just saying stuff they knew would get to me. And I just sucked it up, didn't let it get to me. And every day, Mr. Hanna would call me at lunchtime and he would meet me and tell me to meet him in the parking lot, and he would take me to lunch. And he asked me how the day was going, and I would tell him, you know, whether it was good or not. I just say, you know, everything is good. But you know, but I learned a lot. I mean, I started in the stock room, and I had to put some sparklet water jugs all over the different parts of the studio. And then I had to learn the different pens and the different ink, because back then it was before computer kind of, so they did everything with ink and paint. I had to go, and it was beautiful because I got to get to know everybody in the building. And it gave me a quick education on that. And so that's how I started like that. It just, you know, that was my beginning there, with just coming in the studio and just saying, whoa, and being a little intimidated, not too sure of myself, but know that if I just keep my hands on the handlebars, I could kind of ride my way through this. That was my mindset. Sorry, I'm talking too much, but anyway, that's what that is.
No, it's not too much. We love anything that you want to say. We want to hear it.
We're
very excited to hear your story, and so far it's an amazing one. So please don't feel like you're talking too much. No.
Well, you know, sometimes I don't believe it. I mean, the way I walked in the door at the studio, and now my life and how it's so respected because of my association with them and the trust and the love that I earned in this industry. You know, I mean, I mean, I'm pushing the horse before the carriage because we got a lot to cover. But you know, getting phone calls from Ruth Busby and Jack Nicholson and all these different people was just like, you know, they would call because Jack Nicholson's first job ever, I don't know if you guys know that, he was the office boy for Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera at MGM. They used to send him. He just came out here from New Jersey, and and he stayed true too. I can't really throw him. He didn't go Hollywood. Well, what I'm trying to say is that he always checked on them. And when I used to host the birthday parties, he'd call up. And when they wasn't doing well, he would call me and say, "How's the old man?" And so he stayed on it like that. I mean, those cats, they stayed. And Mr. Hanna was amazing, man. I mean, Mr. Barbera was the Hollywood, and I loved him. But Mr. Hanna was for the underdog. He's the guy. You know, he had before Hanna-Barbera, he had a small company that he did that it was called Roan and something, and they made airplane parts. And he hired all lesbians, and because they didn't get a shake in life, and he knew that they would work hard. And I ain't talking about the jelly ones. I'm talking about the rough ones. And he brought one, Jamie Dreckert, who worked at our studio at Hanna-Barbera later. He did that, and then he hired over at MGM a lady that was a deaf mute named Joanne Klein, and he taught her about ink and paint and all that. He brought her to Hanna-Barbera, and she couldn't talk at all. she just had, well, she could talk, at least she was funny. She used to sing, I love you, Bill, I love you. And she used to say to me, you my boyfriend, you my boyfriend. And she could bowl. And my point, I guess I'm making about Mr. Hanna is that he really rooted for the underdog. He was more comfortable with regular everyday people than he was with like celebrities and all that. He didn't go for that. But Mr. Barbera was the opposite. He liked all that, and I liked hanging with him because you don't know what you're gonna get into with him. He was smooth, I mean, I got to see, the early days, I got to see Sinatra one time. I got to see D. Martin, which that was sad because he was, he had lost his kid and he was going downhill. But still, he was tight with all, and his wife was Zsa Zsa Gabor. And I think the first week I was even there, Rex Harrison was up at their house. And I'm a projects kid. I'm like, whoa, and I'm trying to keep it cool. But I'm like, this is kind of, and for my relationship to grow with them, and I got to mention, hold on. I just got to mention a name, and that's Iwo Takamoto. Iwo was amazing. Iwo, to me, and Mr. Hanna, Mr. Barbera, you always tell me to tell the truth. There's a lot of stuff other people got credit for that Iwo really should have got. He was amazing. And what I loved about him, me being one of the few African Americans, is that him being a Japanese American, he was in an internment camp. He was at Disney before he came in. He had to deal with different levels of racism and prejudice, so he could give me direction and stuff and help me keep my cool. And he shared stories about what he had to deal with. And then he told me I love music, so he used to tell me about how they, were segregated, and they used to all go to one part of LA to hear when Louis Armstrong and all those guys used to come to town to perform. So he was just, and Iwo could draw. Boy, he could draw. And his wife loved me, and she used to send me with him to go for his lectures, and I escorted him to the Annie Awards, the Animation Awards. And I just remember him and Roy Disney talking and just soaking all that up. But it's just amazing. But Mr. Hanna, and the real star of the show was his wife. Mrs. Hanna was the one who just, man, wow. But anyway, okay, let me give y'all the mic back.
No, we absolutely love everything that you're telling us. We could listen to you talk for days. So.
Oh, that's a nice thing. Well, there's a lot of memories in here in this, and everywhere they went, I was with them. And, and especially Mrs. Hanna, if I couldn't go, she wouldn't let them go. And they gave me veto power, like if somebody came and I didn't like the way they were interacting, the studio gave it to me too. It was a couple times when people were out of line a little bit, I thought, and I said that interview's over, and nope, you can't. And then they try, and I say no, and then they try to go over my head. They go, "Who's the black guy that's telling me this?" And they said, listen, they tell them respectfully. They say, "That's Carlton, and those guys would not be coming into the office if it wasn't for him, because their families trust them as they're getting in advanced age. And I'm telling you, that ain't a guy you want to be on the wrong side with." And so I had plenty of support, because they, at the beginning, look what they did for me. And God gave me a chance to be there for them at the end. And I got, really, I got more credit because they're big icons, but they really deserve credit, because there's no way my life would be like it is if it wasn't for them. It's no way at all, especially due to the pandemic and getting everything from checks in the mail. They all put stuff together and bought me a nice new vehicle, and Mrs. Hanna sent money to my mother. I mean, you talking to me. I mean, them cats, man, oh my dudes. Yeah. I'm sorry, that's my heart talking a little bit there. That's something that's talking now. So you got it.
It's great because they treat you as you're a part of their family, which is wonderful. I love that. I love that they do that. You made just as much of an impact on them as they made on you.
Well, that's
So
that's a nice thing to say. I do feel like I had the opportunity to step up and later on, and as they changed, I was a young boy trying to find my way, and they helped me, especially Mr. Hanna, but Mr. Barbera too, helped me find my way and helped me get my mother out of the housing project. And then later, because of all the years I spent with them, and they started to, their health started to fail and stuff, they started to depend on me. And so it was my chance to kind of be consistent with them and show them that, okay, it's my turn to step up. So it was a give take kind of thing, Yeah.
So you said you spent a lot of time with both Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera outside of Hanna-Barbera. What was it like? Just what would you do with them?
Well, what happened, at the beginning, it was mostly Mr. Hanna, but then I started to get, popular really. What happened is that they started having events, and because I'm a DJ and I ain't shy, so I would get on the mic and get things going and make the crowd say yabba dabba do and all that kind of stuff. And so he got Mr. Barbera, he's a showman. So he was like, whoa. So he went to the executives and he says, why does Bill got the black kid all the time? I don't want to be able to have the black kid around. So they told him, they said, look, Mr. Barbera, you can have whoever you want. We'll get whatever. Says, I want Carlton around too. And so for a while that went away. And then after a while, the studio, the executives called, Ray Rajewski and them guys called me in. I don't know if I should mention their name, but they called me in and they said, Carlton, look, we got a situation here. Joe's not happy. And so we need to split your day. It worked out great for me. At the beginning, I was like, oh no, because I love being around Mr. and Mrs. Hanna. She makes good food. And when I go to her house and all that, and she, called my mother on the phone, all that. I liked all that. So, and I didn't know Mr. Barbera like that yet, because all I saw him was just dressed to the T, and he would come in with Harry Belafonte and all these fancy people. So anyway, the studio told me that first half of the day, I had breakfast with Mr. Hanna and his wife. I bring him to the office, and then they bring in another assistant to kind of drive him home. And then the second half of the day, Mr. Barbera didn't come into lunchtime, so I go to his house, pick him up, and the second day I'm with him. So first half of the day I'm with Mr. Hanna. Second day of that day, I'm with Mr. Barbera. That's what it was. I was with them. They just split up my day like that. But on the weekend, to get to your initial question, on the weekend, like with Mr. Hanna, it was all kind of stuff. Like we would go, he had a boat down in Long Beach Yacht Club. We go down there to the boat, or we go eating down there. And Mrs. Hanna, his wife, had a twin sister that lived in Laguna. And we go down there and visit them a lot and stuff. And we just, we just did a lot of family stuff. And we go look at, we watch movies together, and whatever she wanted to do. If she wanted to go shopping or whatever, I'd just be there with her, And so it was like that with her. But Mr. Barbera on the weekends, we would do all kind of fun stuff. We would go he liked fancy restaurants, so we would go to, Musso Frank's, and we would go to Le Serre. That was the big spot back then. And then we would go to La Pagola. That's a place in Encino. And we go to restaurants, and we go to his house. His wife we sing karaoke a lot and all that stuff. We would do most of that stuff on the weekend. But it was hard because, what a lot of people don't realize that I'd be with them, and I almost, being from New York, we don't need much sleep, And so I would be with them all day, and at night I'd be DJing celebrity parties. Magic Johnson was hiring me. I was DJing at night, and then in the morning I'd be there with them. And then sometime, I shouldn't say this, but one of the housekeepers said one time, Carlton, I smell them funny cigarettes. It was on my clothes from the club. I said, really? She said, yeah. I said, oh boy. But I just had my life was just busy like that, And I brought some I mean, I don't know if you can see on my phone and stuff, but you know, the pictures on my phone, you probably, if I could put them up, but you know, Eddie Murphy, Notorious B.I.G. I brought all those people to the studio, you know, because they let me do that to give a tour and all that. And so, you know, I just had a busy life. But those guys, Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera, and Mr. Barbera was really funny. Mr. Hanna was too, but Mr. Barbera he was always playing jokes. He was quick too. He was just sharp and quick, boy. But you know, anyway, I hope that answers some of your questions.
Oh yeah. So you've met some really incredible people that you had mentioned, like Iwo Takamoto, Scatman Crothers, Michael Jackson. What was it like for you meeting those people?
Well, it's not a general, that's kind of, and I don't mean this wrong, that's kind of a general question, but it's no general answer for that because they're all specific. It was different, each one. Probably the one who really was, Scatman Crothers was amazing to me. He, you know, of course, he was the voice of Hong Kong Phooey, and that's why he would come to the studio. But one day he saw me at the studio, and he obviously didn't see a lot of African Americans. So he said to me, he said, "Yo, come here, young boy." And I said, "Whoa," I said, "Hey, Mr. Scrothers," he said, and everybody was around too. Like, and I don't know how to say this politically correct, but I'm just gonna say, all these white guys were standing right around. Like, Scatman was the man, because he was in The Shining, he was in Cuckoo's Nest, he was Freddie Prinze, Tico was the man, he was in that. And so he, you know, he had a little swag, you know, they wasn't gonna push him around. And he would look at me and say, "Come here, young man, come here." He said, "Hey, them white boys being good to you?" And I go, "Whoa." And I say, "Oh yeah, Mr. Slade, don't lie to me, boy. Oh, them white boys being good to you, are they treating you all right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Let me tell you," because he's from the, you know, Louisiana stuff. He said, "Let me tell you something. You got to be quite twice as good as the white boys." He said, "You make sure you always come on time. You got to work as hard, if not harder. You're the one of the first ones I seen here, and I don't want you to be the last." And boy, when he said that, it just struck me different. It was like a relative. I was like, whoa. And then he went back to them. He said, "Now, what is it that you wanted?" He started talking to them, and they wanted some autographs and stuff. And I was like, whoa, my man came at me for real. And so that was like that. But Michael Jackson was way different. I mean, you know, he was just, you know, he was more like, he just would talk to me about Mr. B. He says, "When I was younger, Joe and Bill's cartoons is all I had. I didn't have much of a childhood to get out." And I don't want to disrespect, but he had something going on with his nose, and I kept staring at him. Mr. B said, "Don't look at Jackson like that, Carlton." I was like, something going on there, boy. It was like that. And then Zsa Gabor up at the house, she was really something. She had some bad racial jokes, but you got to play along with them, that kind of stuff. And she had a dog that they had a table like from here way to down there. And her little dog would just eat up people's out of their food and all that. She was different. That was a different twist right there. And Jonathan Winters was really something too. He had physical comedy where he would just, to make you laugh, he would hit his head against the wall and all that. And I remember one time I had to go pick up lunch for the executives over in Toluca Lake. And I go in there to get the order or whatever. And I see him at the table with some executives. And I know he's crazy. I ain't want to make eye contact. I'm just trying to get my order. And he said, and he didn't say my name right, "Clayton." And I go, "Mr. Winters." He said, "Come here for a second." Right in front of everybody in the restaurant, he said, "I've been working on this new black man routine and I want to try it on you and tell me what you think." And here he is in the middle of it. "Yeah, where my money? I'm going to whoop your tail. My mama." And he's putting on his routine right in the place. And I'm like, yeah, that, like I'm a judge of that, you know, like that's pretty good. So I guess my point is that every one of them are different. They really, really are. Rodney Dangerfield, he was another character. He was different, you know, it's just like when you say, what was it like? each day is like, you just go, whoa, it's just something different with each one. And you just kind of have to adjust the dial for who it is, you know? That's pretty much what it came down to. But there's certain people like that really, you know, my heart is my mom. So there's certain people, and I keep saying I'm a D. Clay son. I gotta keep saying that because my mother's amazing. And but Eva Marie Saint would call my mother and send stuff. Ruth Buzzy is another one. Some of them would like me so much they say, I want your mom's address. Arsenio Hall did that too, sent her flowers. And that touched me more than anything, because I don't know how they knew how much my mom meant. I think Mr. Hanna or somebody, they must have asked questions, because they would try to find out her address or phone number, and they would call, and my mother would be so happy when she called me and say, Carlton, what are you doing out there? Guess who called me? And that just made me just really happy. But, you know, the celebrity thing, you know, I don't want to name drop. I just had dinner with Dr. Dre the night before last. Nice. And that was nice. We kind of sat and we, you know, talked. I just know him a long time. And that was really something, you know, because he knew that Biggie Smalls, Notorious B.I.G., I knew him pretty good. And just the history of the hip hop. Like I told you, at night I was in the music, and that day I was yabba dabba doing it, you know. Oh, and I went out yesterday. I had lunch with Jerry Eisenberg and Iraj Paran, and they got they just put out a new book, and they really did a nice thing on me in the book. I don't know where, and I don't have no traditional training or nothing. I just, like I told you before, my association with Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera just, those guys took me under their wing and just said, you know what, you were ours. And when they got older, I said, now you're mine. And then, you know, it just returned the favor. But all this stuff is really because of them. The charity work that we do and all that. My mom, and just since she's been gone, we have the Safe Haven back in New Jersey that we still have a Christmas party and scholarships and stuff for the kids. And there's a place out here called New Direction for Youth, and there's another place, the Fred Jordan Mission, that, you know, and Mr. Barbera, he said something to me, and this might sound a little cold, so forgive me, but this is one of the most incredible things he said to me. He said, Carlton, if you live and nobody benefits from you here, if all you do is, and forgive me, is all you do is eat and crap and have sex and go home and go and do that over and over, and one day you die, you just was a waste. You just took up space. Who benefited from you? He says, you know, he says, life is about making sure you look out for somebody else. He says, that's what it's about. Make somebody laugh, make somebody smile. And, you know, that was the advice that he gave me from the heart. And Mr. Hanna was more about, and he really, boy, especially now, his advice had to do more with living within your means. He said, a lot of things you buy are just things. You get a new car, too. You know who really won after about 2 years? That car is then depreciated 50%. And he said, you know, it's all right if your money's good, that's the way you want to do it. But those are just things. He said, live within your means, because I lived through the Depression era, and it might not be in my lifetime, but in your lifetime, something gonna happen. And you're gonna wish that you really practice some discipline. And boy, was he right. During the pandemic, man, so many people were hurting and all that. But man, I shouldn't say it like that, but I am good. Like, I mean, you know, personally, I'm just really in a good place financially, in a good place. And when I say that, I'm in a place where I can make, like Mr. Barbera said, where I can help some other people pay their rent and do some stuff. And that's good. You know, that's a good place to be. So, you know, those guys, them are my dudes, you know? I mean, when I think of going to the Super Bowl with Mr. Hanna, or I think about Mrs. Hanna really got me in the Flintstone movie, that was her. I didn't care about that. And that was really interesting too. I think you saw pictures when we got the tuxedos on and all that crap. And that was really a funny day. And she says, Carlton's not in it, Bill's not in it. And so I said, oh boy, I'm getting in a whole lot of stuff. And so the studio called me in and they said, Carlton, we'll pay you a bonus and all that, but we really want to feature Joe and Bill. And there's nothing, it's nothing against you personally, but they think you might be offended. I said, really? I said, no way am I offended. I said, nah, it is about them. I don't need to be in it. I said, I don't know where that's coming from. And so they said, well, maybe you could talk to Bill and just tell him. And so I did. I said, I went up to his office, said, Mr. Hanna, can I talk to you for a minute? He says, of course, Carlton, close the door, pull in. Everything all right? You need some cash? That's what he always said. And I never really did, but he think, but anyway, he said, what's the matter? I said, well, what's the matter is, Mr. Hanna, I ain't really all that big on being in the movie. And they think that, that I want to be in the movie, and that's why they're doing all this. And that, Mrs. Hanna told them, if I'm not in the movie, they're not. And so they're not. And he says, Carlton, listen, my wife, wherever I'm at, she's comfortable when you're there. If you're not in the movie, well, the hell, I won't be either. We'll just go and have food somewhere. And then he said, that's the end of it, Carlton. And I said, whoa. And then Mrs. Hanna, she don't play. She called Mr. Barbera's secretary, and then he said, what, they won't let Carlton in it? Well, I'm not in it either. The next call I get is, you got to come to wardrobe and try on this crap. And I said, oh my God. I mean, those guys really kept it, they really kept it under with me, they kept it real. And I missed them guys so much, big time.
That's great. It's just so great that they treated you so well.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
they still are. I mean, I'll talk to Mr. Hanna's daughter when I hang up with this. I mean, oh, matter of fact, here, don't do nothing. You stay still for a minute, all right? Just for a minute. Okay. I don't do nothing for a minute. Right there. This is who I turn into at night.
Oh, that's funny.
She gave me that. Bonnie Anderson, Carlton, you should wear that. And I said, oh, Bonnie. Oh, we are silly.
That's wonderful.
But I talk to her all the time. Dave Hanna, I talk to him all the time. Mr. Barbera's daughter, I just went out to lunch with her a couple weeks ago. Yeah, we still, and everybody from the studio, they still, I'm the common denominator. They all get in touch with me and we plan stuff, whether it's a Hanna-Barbera reunion or whatever. And my photos and my video footage is just unbelievable, and the stuff that I have of the history that we've all spent together. Because not only did I host Mr. Hanna's events, but I host Mr. Barbera's birthday parties every year. Every year he has me MC his party, because I got good stories that I know that get him going. And I can keep him going when I pass him the mic. And it's usually me, I'm usually the MC, and they'll have like the president of the company, they'll have Jerry Eisenberg, they'll have Iwo Takamoto, they'll have, of course, Mr. B, and they might have one other person. And we just all share stories. And, I keep it fun though. If they get too, if it get a little boring, I try to put a little hot sauce on it, so to speak. But we had good, and I got footage of all that stuff. So it's really, really something, it's really, really something. And,
Have you ever thought of doing a documentary with the footage or writing a book? Because I mean, we would love that.
Oh, well, people, I get that more than you know. But I just, I just feel like what they did for me, they just kind of lit a cloud in me, a bright cloud, and I'm just living on that cloud. And it's a cloud of great experience. It's a cloud of humbleness. It's a cloud of appreciation, and it's just a cloud of like it's just hard to believe that because I always thought, especially as things the health started to deteriorate, I said, I need to figure out life after this thing because these guys are older, and I always had in my brain that they're not going to always be here. And these studios, you just the next meal, and so I never anticipated the continuation of all these blessings that I continue to get. It's just, it's heartwarming. And sometimes when I watch the news and I see the political discourse and the disconnect, I go, what world is that? I just go, it just puzzles me because no matter what our difference is, we all have so much more in common with each other than not. We just, we all want the best for each other in schooling and all those things. And so I just have to sometimes turn the TV off. It's a different world. But when we talk about Scooby, you can't do that without talking about Iwo Takamoto. Iwo, and I know you guys know good and well how Scooby started, right? You know that. You know the story, yeah. So that was always interesting how, it wasn't going to be a dog in it at the beginning, and how Scooby got his name and all that kind of stuff. That was always something. And I used to love to hear, not just hear Ewo tell a story, but see him draw the different stuff and for, the different kids and all that kind of stuff. And he was amazing. Ewo was just amazing. If Mr. Barbera, Mr. Hanna had an idea, they say, get Ewo, and just like that, boom, 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 he'd get it going. And then Jerry Eisenberg, his father worked with him at MGM. His name was Harvey Eisenberg. And Jerry was really big working with Magilla Gorilla and all those characters. And so, to still be in touch with those guys, or, it's, we're family. I mean, it's really unbelievable. There's no studio, and I'm sure other studios have some, but there's no studio in the world like Hanna-Barbera. It's just not. It just you could just the doors open to walk in the executives, Mr. Hanna. You walk in there, no big shots at all. It's always the janitor, it's the mailroom guy. You know what I mean? And he's making chili beans in his office for everybody, and you could just go in and just talk to him. It just was, everything was accessible. And so, those days are gone, that kind of thing, it's really something.
Everyone we've talked to has had so many amazing things to say about Hanna-Barbera that they can't really say about the other studios that they've worked for. So there's definitely something to be said about Hanna-Barbera.
Absolutely it is. And the real tribute is still, for me personally, is still today. I mean, they, it's like they won't let me go. Not like I want to go, but that phone, especially during the pandemic, boy, oh boy. I mean, some of the envelopes I was getting, the phone calls I was getting, a lot of people didn't believe me. You sure you okay? And all that. And, David Kirshner, who was the president at one time, I'm really close with, he and his family. They've been amazing. And he just had a movie, a premiere I went to called Hocus Pocus 2. That's his movie. And I went to that premiere the other day, and his family has been absolutely amazing to me. The first days at Hanna-Barbera and back in the day, they would invite me over for Thanksgiving, and when his grandkids are born, they invite me to birthday parties. I mean, all these guys, and it's amazing. And then, Fred Seibert and his wife Robin, Jeff, Jed Simmons and his wife and kids. His son is like my little brother. He sends them out here and he hangs out with me. I mean, all those guys still, people that go on other things, they still stay connected like that. I mean, I'm talking about for real too. I ain't talking about just being nice. I'm talking about inviting you in their house and breaking bread with you and all that kind of stuff. And it's the people that came through that door. You just sit back and you go, whoa, and you know, and Dave and Bonnie Hanna and Mrs. Hanna's daughter-in-law. Oh man, Virginia, they you know, they almost, it seems like they hold you by the like this. Make sure you good. We making sure that you are right. And you know, I always say, if I die today, listen, if I die today, I'm gonna be the first one. The Undertaker gonna say, we can't close his mouth. I'll be like, life been darn good, boy. Life's been good. But here's, you know, I'm gonna run this a little bit now. I'm gonna tell you a couple funny stories. Want to hear some funny stuff?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, here's a couple quick funny ones. One time, well, at least, you know, Mr. Barbera loved this. One time, I told this at Comic-Con actually, and they really liked it. But anyway, I you know, like I told you, I DJ at night, and so I was DJing a party, and I met this girl, and so the girl, me and her, we kind of hit it off or whatever. I told her I worked for Mr. Barbera. I gave her my card. She lost my card. So she called the studio, and Mr. Barbera never usually answers his phone. He has an assistant and a secretary. And so this time they wasn't around. He answers the phone and says, hello, this is Joe Barbera. And the girl says, can I speak to Carlton? She says, you know, yeah, Carlton, my assistant. She said, your assistant, ain't he the head of Black Animation? And Mr. Barbera said, what? He said, I met him at a nightclub and he told me he the head of the whole Black Animation. Mr. Barbera said, he told you what? And so he called me, Carlton. I said, yeah, come here. Come here. And then he put his hand on the phone. He said, where do you find dames that go for lines like that? And so then we had an event where with the earthquake shaky quakey machine. It's a band that shows kids how to work, how to respond to earthquake. And I had to introduce them. I said, kid, you know, and I'm pretty good at that. I was like, kids, are you ready for the co-founder Hanna-Barbera? That ain't good enough, kids. Are you ready? Can I get a yabba dabba do? He said, yabba dabba do. And I said, here's Joe Barbera. And so when I gave him the mic, he said, I want to thank my head of Black Animation. I want to climb underneath the bus. I said, ooh, he coming at me. And he never let me off the hook for that. But he was funny. He was really, really funny. I mean, you know, we had so many funny. I mean, he always was up to something. I remember one time we were eating at Tony Roma's and we were having, we went there for ribs. And when he got older, he had trouble getting his wallet out. He called his billfold and he's sitting at the table and he says, can you give me a hand with my billfold? I help him get his wallet. And there's a whole table of police right there, cops having lunch. And, you know, obviously I'm tall and Black and he's rich and white and short. And I'm helping with his wallet. And one cop comes over and says, is everything all right here? And Mr. Barbera looks at me and says, I never seen this son of a gun in my life. And I said, and it was around the Rodney King time. I said, Mr. B, don't do that, man. You know, and but he had a heart too. I remember we went to see, we were at Larry King, and I'll never forget this. That touched my heart. We were at Larry King, and he had an interview, and obviously I went with him. Not, you know, I was in the green room, and the lady came out and said, Mr. Barbera? He said, yes. He said, I'm finishing up with my guests. I'll be with you shortly. And do you want coffee or tea, anything? He said, no, I'm fine. So she goes back in there. So Wesley Snipes was in the green room too. And so he looks at Mr. Barbera and he says, Joe Barbera? Flintstones, Yogi, Scooby, Huckleberry Hound? Mr. Barbera said, yes. And Wesley said, you the man. So Mr. B said, excuse me? He said, you the man. And then he tells me, he said, will you tell him he's the man? And so I was like, wow. And so anyway, the lady comes out and says, okay, Mr. Barbera, we're ready for you. So they bring him in and he does an interview. I'm still in the green room talking to Wesley about sports and all that. So they bring Mr. Barbera's done, he comes out, and I notice he ain't talking. And he ain't himself. And I said, Mr. B, you okay? Yeah, pal, I'm all right. And he would go in and he's not really interacting. He ain't himself. And I said, hey, Mr. B, are you sure? He says, yeah, I'm okay. And then he still, and so we get, we're in the car, we go heading back to the studio. And I said, Mr. B, you don't sound like yourself. He said, pull over. I pulled over. And I never forget this. He said, and it changed our relationship in a good way. He looked at me and he says, look, pal, I wanna apologize. I said, for what? He says, well, I know the man is always holding you black guys back. And when Snipes said, I'm the man, that had to embarrass you. I said, whoa. I said, Mr. B, you got that wrong. That ain't what that means. He says, bull, yes, it is. I've heard that growing up, that the man holds you guys back. I said, yeah, but that ain't the way that goes now. I'm telling you. And he says, Carlton, don't BS me. I said, I'm not. So then I saw the security guard, Big Ron, big black dude. I said, Ron, come here. I said, if I tell you the man, what's that? He said, that's the biggest compliment, of course. And then I called Julian. Julian, come in. It's like, a couple minutes later. Julian, yeah, and Julian's and a little flamboyant, let's just say. And so Julian, I said, Julian, if I say you the man, what would you say? He said, I am the man. What are you talking about? And I said, Mr. BC, I'm telling you, that ain't what that means. And then we got in the elevator. He said, I'll be darned. But what it was, he thought I was embarrassed that he embarrassed me for what he did. It's from that point on, it made our relationship better because then he started asking more questions. Why the kids are sagging off of their rears, the tattoo phrase, and all that. And then, he would be with me on the weekends. And sometimes some dudes I know come up to me using the N-word. What's up, man? From the hood. And he was like, whoa. And so it was a learning curve for him. But look how much I learned from them. I mean, it was both of us learning. But I just remember that one incident with things, because he was always a little bit, and I don't mean this disrespectful to him, he was always real sure of himself before that. And after that, he kind of, he said, let me figure this out. He kind of came around to that side. But, he was amazing. He, Mr. B was just, hanging out with him was like hanging out with a movie star. But Mr. Hanna was like my real, you felt like your real father or grandfather, like for real. Like, Mr. Barbera was like an older teenager in some regards. But Mr. Hanna was like your grandfather. You get on the ladder and changing a bulb with, that kind of stuff. It was just different, kind of like
That's
that.
Great. You got to MC, was it Joe Barbera's memorial service?
Yeah.
And what was that like, and what did that mean to you?
It was probably one of the most stressful times in my entire life. It was very difficult because on one hand, I lost somebody and I was hurting. On another hand, it was a lot of politics, I have to be honest, that were going on, because really the person that usually does that is the president of the company that usually MCs that. And so I knew, but they were so supportive of me, but I still was hurting. I didn't know where my job was going. And then it was some family issues with his family that they're not mad at me, but just stuff I had to deal with. And it was just, when they asked me, I said, ooh. And some people would think it'd be an honor. No, I didn't think like that. I just thought like, I've been with him every day. I just hold his hand when he died with me. And, I need to just turn this switch off and go somewhere and mourn and kind of cry a little bit myself. And now they asked me to do something even more. That's what it was like for me. So I was hoping at that point to get out of it. And, but the president, Sander, at the time came to me and I sat down and I said, you know what? I'm not comfortable. You're the president. And, it seemed like it's something you should be doing. And then he said, no, nobody was closer to Joe and Bill like you. That was Joe's blessing. That's what he wanted, Carl. And you know the stories, all the people, everybody in there. Whenever Joe see him, they see you, so you can connect the dots. He says, if you really don't want to do it, we could figure something out. But it would mean a lot to the studio and to him and his family if you did it. And so that's really, and I just remember going into his office and he was gone, and it was just me by myself before the event. And I remember praying, and I remember just saying, you know what? Just put a bow on this thing. Just put a bow on this thing, and whatever you do, make it fun. That's what Mr. B was all about. You keep it upbeat. You make it fun. You know, you make sure you acknowledge. I went through my head. You only get you don't get a second time to make a first impression. Think about what Mr. B and them used to tell you. You got to mention it's political. You got to mention all these names, the family members. You got to mention people that you know. You got to just kind of have this thing on your mind. And so I just had this like a notebook in my head, and I went there, and I you know, I gotta say so myself. I knocked it out the park. That thing, I know I made him proud. I just, you know, not just the reaction. People were just incredible, but it was like, besides, you know, nobody really knew what I was going through at that time. That was really, really difficult, because more than anything, I missed my man. That was my, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a fun time. But when it was over, it felt like, okay, I got it over. And you know, all that, it came back. It was nice. But speaking of Mr. Hanna's was different. That was you know, that was before, that was definitely before that, and a lot before that, like 10 years or so. But speaking of that I didn't have to host that. I just spoke at that. But I like the way that went, because like my heart did the talking. I didn't really, everybody else, you know, it's Hollywood. Everybody else writing stuff down and reading stuff off stuff. Nah, I don't do that. I just it's stuff. If it's good stuff in here, good stuff gonna come out. And so it was real good stuff in there. And so I, you know, I said a little sad stuff. Then I told you know, one of the funny stories, and then I had the whole audience give his wife a standing ovation, because I knew that's what he would want. And then you know, so that was a different kind of situation. But what I was asked to do in a lot of situations was, ooh, let me figure this out. But most of the time we did, when we were traveling to Chicago and to Las Vegas, and oh man, just so many different things. You know, you just go, wow. It's just, and even his daughter now, she Bonnie, she gave me so many wonderful collectibles that you know, it's just, you know, she just said, I think you should have these, and then trinkets to give out to the kids, and you know, they're just, you know, they're just wonderful families and people. You know, they just wonderful, wonderful human beings, man. Just to be a part of that is, you know, and you know, the real thing though, this is the story you really need to ask. Here's the story. You know, now, hey, I'm gonna go at you. If I said what would be the question that wasn't on there that's interesting, is the first time I met Mrs. Hanna. When Mr. Hanna brought me home to meet her, that was the big potatoes there, boy. Woo! Yeah, that was crazy, because she didn't really know hardly no black people, and I didn't really know no rich white people like that. So it was like Trump and Hillary or something. It was two different sides of the game. And so Mr. Hanna, what he did, he got on the phone, and this is maybe about a month or two after I was there, he called me himself, he got on the phone, and he called his wife. He said, honey, you remember the black kid I told you about? Well, I want to bring him home for breakfast. And I could hear her on the other side. She was saying, Bill, you're too nice. Some of those people stealing stuff, Bill. You can't just bring. And he could tell I heard that. He said, go out there for a minute. And I had to go. And then he came, he told the secretary to call me in, and I came back. He said, it's all set. You be at my house tomorrow morning, and he gave me the time or whatever. And I was like, whoa, just from hearing her on the phone, I said, ooh, this is going to be, but I can't say no to him. So I show up at the house on time. And when I walk in, ooh, she looked at me and I looked at her. I said, oh boy. And so, but he was a master at breaking the ice. He knew, he said, honey, tell Carlton how you make that pineapple upside down cake. And she was grumbling. She was like, well, yeah, I put a little lemon in, then I had to do a little of that. Then he says, Carlton, tell her how you came out here on a bus and you don't know nobody. And so I said, yeah, well, yeah, I did, and this and that and this. And so then that's how he would break the ice a little. But she was like, she would hate me to say it, but it's the truth, because later on we got real close, so it's all right. But her color started to change when she, all that, like, getting a little red and all that. And I was like, nervous, because I was like, what spoon do I use? And, I'm a ghetto kid, really. Polished up, but that's what I was. And so she said, so I said, okay, at the end of the breakfast, I said, and I'm going to the office with him. I said, I did it, I got it. But then she says, she didn't say she liked me. She said, well, I guess Bill likes you. And she said, so. And I always remind her of that later when we laugh. But she said, well, Bill seems to like you. And so you don't have a family out here or anything. I expect you to be here for breakfast tomorrow at the same time. And I was mad. I was like, damn it. And then the next day, and then the next day, and the next day, and we got closer and closer. And then she was telling me about her experience with African Americans that wasn't good ones, and that way, and how she was raised, and some of the things she experienced that had her feel the way she did. And then I told her how uncomfortable I was, and some of the things I do when people prejudge me and see me because they have a view of African American, they throw it on me, and I gotta always disprove myself. Just prove that I'm not that person that they think I am. And we slowly but surely, and then me and her, I mean, this is a little, sorry about the racial overtone here, but we was tight as Puerto Rican shoes after that. I mean, me and her, you couldn't separate us. We would walk, hold hands. She would, when I come to her house, you could just hear her. When I turn the key, she says, Carlton here yet? Where's Carlton? And, me and her, we watched Laker games together. I mean, she financially, my mom, we became really, 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 really close. And she told me when I just told you I spoke at Mr. Hanna's memorial, and when I went to sit next to her, they were giving her a standing ovation. And I was sitting right next to her, and she grabbed my hand and she said, you did really, really good, but I got to ask you a favor. And I was like, whoa, where's this going? And I said, what? And she went, and so help me, she said, I want you to continue to have breakfast, and we'll leave Bill's chair empty, and we still have breakfast every morning. And I think Bill would like that. Will you do that? And I said, absolutely. And we did. We would have, until she left the planet, I'd go over and have breakfast at her house with her. We became, and everybody, even in the new book, that I should show you all that, but you probably can't see it through the thing. But even in the new book, they got a picture of me and her in there. And they got a picture of me with the microphone, getting the crowd going on. They, that's, everybody knew that how our relationship was. I mean, it was, it was unbelievable. Mrs. Hanna and I, boy, it was, it was one of those things that but we spent so many years. I mean, I had breakfast with them every single day, every single morning, every single one, just us three. Nobody, well, they had the housekeeper that cooked and stuff, but I mean, at the table, it was just us every single day. And, and there's something that nobody could ever take away. And then, and from there, we go to the studio. And so that whole thing, with the artists and the whole thing, with that. and then at night I'm DJing. So life was just, it's totally unbelievable. It's and all the artists, they just so got, you would think I was somebody that's drawing pictures with them or something. I mean, just the way they treat me as an equal, it's just, and the Comic-Con experience was really something. I have to tell you, I didn't know what to expect. And when I got there, when I saw all those people, and that reaction was really something, boy. They were really with me every way of the way, because most of the people on the panel were talking about the process of the animation, and they were talking about working with the guys filming. But I talked about the private life, the experience with them, what they were like as human beings. And it seemed to really resonate. That was something. You ain't gonna get all this into, huh?
That's the kind of stuff that we love to hear about. You as a person, them as people. It means a lot to us because we never got to meet them. So,
Wow.
and we, I mean, as you can see, we love Scooby-Doo,
Yeah.
but we also
Yeah.
love the other cartoons that
Right.
Hanna-Barbera made, and just to learn about
Look
them
at
as people is amazing.
I just thank you. That your words were nice, but I just got thrown, and forgive me, all three of you. Just forgive me for a second, because the backgrounds are kicking that y'all got, and I see the tributes. Wow, y'all representing. I'll tell you this, y'all are representing.
We like Scooby just a little bit. Just a
Man,
little.
hey, listen, Ray Charles can see that, boy. You kidding me? Y'all definitely representing, boy. And winning over there. Wow. Wow. That is crazy. Yeah. So I just said, I put my high beams on and said, whoa.
So in the movie Scoob, they named Carlton Way after you.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw it, I knew exactly who that was for. And I was so excited that they put that in there.
Oh, that's
Did
nice.
you see that? And what did you think of it?
Well, Tony, he was one of the guys who were on the panel, Tony Savone, and he's amazing. Him and Spike Brand, I don't know if those names are familiar, but they used to come to Mr. Barbera's office and help him, and they really, you want to keep it honest, they did most of the work on Mr. Barbera's last cartoon. And it was his brainchild, but he wasn't in a way that he could do it like he used to. So they really, and I got to know them really, really well. And everybody at the studio knew the importance of my relationship, my dedication to those guys. They knew it. And so they always showed me love. They really did. And so, but to be honest with you, somebody else told me, like, Tony didn't call me at first and tell me that he was even doing it. They didn't even tell me like that. Somebody mentioned it, and I said, "What, really?" And when I saw it, when I first saw it, I don't know, Zeta, somebody from the Cartoon Network's in it, and I saw it, and I said, "Wow!" And the reason, and one of the things that people don't understand, and they know where they could kind of understand. One of the significance to it is not just acknowledging me, which is a beautiful thing and a tribute to it. And they talked about it in a couple write-ups, and I appreciate all that. But that was the first apartment, Mr. and Mrs. Hanna had when they got married, was on Carlton Way in Hollywood. And he used to drive by and show me where he lived. And so it was kind of like him talking to me through the film. And so it really resonated even deeper than most people knew. It really touched my heart. And I said, whoa, it just, what a tribute, I mean, when I think of that, and I think of the Flintstone movie, and I think of going to the Super Bowl with Mr. Hanna, so many things. I just think of certain things that stand out. and particularly the first two things, because they'll outlive me. I mean, film, you know how that goes. And so it'll always be something that, part of your legacy. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I told Tony that too, and that's my man. He's super talented, but those cats, those, I don't want to keep saying I'm from back east, but being back east, you gotta be able to talk. You can't hide in the corner like somebody in Wisconsin and all these other places. You gotta be able to, you better bark, else you ain't gonna eat. And so, but Tony and they smooth, you know what I mean? He let his artistry do the talking, and Duzzy, talented, and Spike, all those guys are wonderful. And but they kind of sit back, but that was really a beautiful gesture, really beautiful gesture. And I'm a Scooby guy too. I mean, look, I've got I know you. Oh, I should send you on some of these. Oh, by the way, this is the book. This is the book that they got me in right here.
I'm gonna have to find that book.
Yeah. And these are all the first Scoobies here. You probably got all this stuff anyway, but those are the first, second, and third season of Scooby right there. But let me see if I find something quick. And it's crazy. You just go, wow. You do, what a ride. That's all you can really say at the end of the day. You just go, is this really happening in my life? And okay, I'm not gonna keep. But they did me nice in there. They did me really nice. And so in the book, and Iwo Tokumoto's book, I'm in that. He's got me with a nice picture of me and him in there, and his wife was really good with me. And it was like, oh man, it just, what a ride. And just now to be in my life and to be healthy, and to have those experiences, and to be able to help other people and be able to share the legacy is a really, really beautiful thing. And Scooby, oh man, I mean, when I think about Scooby, for the most part, for me, I think about the beginning and how limited amount of numbers of Scoobies were made at the beginning. And how much, let's just keep it honest, how much they make with merchandising and all that off of Scooby. Whether it's well, look at you guys in the background. I don't even have to go through the Halloween stuff and the curtains and all this stuff. And I think, let me see, I think I even, oh yeah, check that. Oh, I got, well, I just realized even, and this is subconscious, I didn't even know, I so healthy, I didn't know, but I think, look.
That's perfect.
Look at that, I didn't even know, I forgot I even had that on. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, wow, I forgot I had that. I really did. But I got to, I got socks and all that stuff. And so, and listen, I might send y'all some stuff that might not be for you. You can give it to a kid, all right? So, just know, you can give it to a kid or a guy or whatever. Some of the stuff, because they give me ties and all that crap, So if I give you something, don't be like, oh, this, but we got all that,
Anything Scooby, it doesn't matter what it is.
Okay.
Well, I do kind of draw the line, like I don't buy children's underwear if it has Scooby on it. I don't know, that's just a little weird. Like I did for my kids when they were little, but they're older now, so yeah. But anything else.
Because I don't wear them, but I have a box of Scooby boxers, brand new. People they just give me this stuff. I mean, it's amazing. But I tell you what I have that's valuable, really, is animation cells that are signed. Yeah, I got those. I got some great ones, some great ones. Yeah.
If you ever want to take pictures of them and send me pictures and I can share them with them, that would be awesome. We love to see anybody's collection.
Really? Okay, yeah, no, I can do that for sure. Definitely. And we got playing cards and oh man, don't get me started on all the stuff that it's amazing. Mr. Barbera was really something because what happened is in I forget, consumer products, I think is the division. With when they come out with something, Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera get the first ones. Then everybody else get them. And so Mr. Barbera would just give me stuff and just say, Carlton, you want this? And I would, and it's amazing, clocks and just different things, And Mr. Hanna you didn't do it as much because he had grandkids or he just would give it to different people. But Mr. Barbera would just say, take it. And it's amazing, some of the stuff. Yeah, you guys will be getting, and you guys are awesome. Anybody listen, let me say this. I know this is about Scooby, about me, about the studio and all that. But let me say this, and I know I'm talking from Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera now. Thank you, ladies, for embracing a character that was dear to the heart of not only my former bosses, but also Iwo Takamoto. They worked hard. They dealt with a lot early on with that. I remember the stories that I heard about when the guys originally drew the characters, and and I shouldn't get too deep, but that was the hippie phase, and those guys would, I don't know. I'm gonna be nice. They just was in a whole lot of stuff, those dudes, and so when they brought that when they brought what they had to Iwo and them before the dog, they had a choice. And I tell this story all the time because the story is relevant in this regard, because a lot of kids or a lot of even adults, they work on a project that has really good potential and they're almost there and they give up before they got there. They say, it ain't gonna be no good. They were about to throw a Scooby in the trash before they added a dog. That would have never happened if they didn't add it as one thing. And I'll tell you, it's like the same thing with records or anything else. You that close to a hit. Maybe you need to add another singer. Maybe you need to change the beat. So you that close. You don't give up before you get to the finish line. And that is so relevant. And again, I just want to say on behalf of the studio, the Hanna and Barbera family, thank you. Thank you for keeping the legacy of Scooby and Hanna-Barbera alive with what you ladies are doing, without a doubt. And you know, this ain't just somebody you interview here. You got a buddy now. I'm gonna be sending y'all stuff. You'll see. You're gonna look in the mail. But it really means a lot. Thank you, big time. And when I just think about the legacy of the whole studio, and I think about the early days when those guys got thrown out at MGM, when and the invention of TV, and because originally when they were doing those were shorts, and those things that they did were for in between movies. They had intermissions with movies, so they showed Tom and Jerry and all those little. In other studios, did Heckle and Jekyll and stuff, and they would be for intermissions. And then once the invention of television, they threw them out. So Mr. Hanna, Mr. Barbera hired all the people that lost the job and put them together, and that was it was little places they were for a couple of years, but then finally they got that building, and that was the birth of Hanna-Barbera, and because of that, there's Scooby.
Yeah. Well, I can speak for myself. I think I can speak for all of us, but I'll just speak for myself that Scooby has gotten me through some of the toughest times in my life. So thank you and Hanna-Barbera and everybody else that worked on it, because without Scooby, I'm not sure where I would be right now.
Wow, that really touched my heart. That really do. God bless you. One of the things we did many years ago is, and you see the magic of Scooby, we had at Children's Hospital, we had a wing, and we would come and we would bring, wear the Scooby costumes, and we would bring goodies and arts and craft, and not just Scooby, some of the other characters, but Scooby was such a dog. The Scooby was such a hit, and the kids who had cancer and all these different things, they really, really lifted their spirits and made them feel good. And it was beautiful to see that, to watch how the impact was between with those cartoons. And you know, my situation, what makes my situation unique is that if you talk to someone who's an artist, okay, they talk to you about drawing and how was drawing that. Or if you talk to someone who was ink and painter, they'll talk to you about that. But my thing is that what was unique about me is that it's just like I had access to and to spend time with all of that. And so, whether you were doing voiceover, whether you're in the warehouse, whether you're doing background, whatever. I mean, they even had me do some writing on an episode of Static Shock. And so, I did a little, do a little writing there. I produced Fred Flintstone hip hop CD when they were Fred Flintstone, the artists. I directed them, so they're rapping the beats on that as a hip hop CD, and that was really fun. And that was under Fred Seibert when he was there. He was like, because we went to the MTV Awards and all that together, and he said, "You know what, Carl? I think you should take a crack at that." And so I just mean over the years, and I worked in the music department too for a while. I still did what I did with them, but when they were working on something, I would be in the music department. So it was just like through the years, I almost did with every aspect of the studio. And so it was just, it was amazing to see and to experience. And I had one thing I had that I'm sure a couple of people were jealous of, is that I had job security. Like those guys work on the show and it's over, they might have to take a break or go somewhere and work on another show and come back. Well, as long as Mr. Barbera and Mr. Hanna, as long as they kicking, I ain't going nowhere. So it was those guys. I can't count the times I had to say goodbye to certain coworkers and stuff, but because of them, I was, I wasn't going nowhere. And it just was like, I just can't be thankful enough. And then to talk to you guys, and I keep being, I don't want to use the word distracted, but I keep looking at the backgrounds and I go, wow. I go, and I think of, Ewell and them. I wish they could see that. I mean, really, I look and I just, it's fascinating. It's really, really, really nice to see you guys represent like that. And I'll tell you too, there are times when Scooby got me through stuff too. It got me through stuff where if I'm talking to a kid that's been abused or something, and I give him something and he says, "Oh, Scooby," that just does something to me. Or when someone calls me from a shelter or something and they say, "Carlton, we gotta, give us something that, it would really, touch." And I'll give you this, these are just things I'm thinking about. When I told you that was the toughest day at the studio when I had to MC, probably right there with it, if not the other toughest day, is I'll never forget this. This is one time that my heart really got broke. Years ago, I also did tours. I would do VIP tours, not the regular ones. Like if it's somebody, a celebrity that I would, or the family of an executive, I would give them a tour of the studio. Well, this particular day, they came to me and they said, "Look, these two girls have been abused and they never been to school, and all they watch is Tom and Jerry." And they said, in a trailer. And they said that Children's Services is going to bring them over like next month or something. And Mr. Hanna said, "You'd be great to show the kids around." And I'm busy or whatever. I said, "Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll do it." So time goes by. Okay, the day comes. And the lady and the switchboard, Pat calls me and says, "Carlton, oh my goodness, the girls are here." And I'm like, "What girls?" He said, "You're going to show the girls from the Children's Service." I said, "Oh, that's right." Then all of a sudden, before I can get myself together, people come to my office crying, saying, "Oh," and I'm like, "What is going on?" Go out, and the counselors there with them. These two little white girls were being sexually abused in a trailer since they were little by their mom, who had special needs boyfriend, for like forever. and they never had school. All they had was each other, and they watched Tom and Jerry over and over. And I said, whoa. And so I went, and so when I went into the lobby, they were in the lobby, and I approached them, and I said, hi, girls. Welcome to Hanna-Barbera. I'm Carlton. I understand you don't like Tom and Jerry. And they didn't give me nothing. And I said, ooh, this is going to be rough. And I said, don't you guys, you know, I of course turned it on. I said, you guys want to see the co-creator of all the Hanna-Barbera characters? And one whispered in the other. They had scratches all over them. And one whispered in the other one's ear. And I said, do you want to meet who drew Scooby-Doo? I said, he's here. They whispered again. And I said, wow. And then people were standing around, and I'm like, well, you girls got to let me know what you want to do. We want to do something fun for you girls. And so you got to help me. You know, this is a special day for all of us. And they still not, they whispered. And the counselor's looking at me like, keep going. And I'm like, because I'm emotional right now when I was saying it too. I was like looking at these girls saying, oh my God. I mean, I'm not a violent guy. I could have killed the guy who did that. Like literally, I mean it. And who did that to those girls. So then I said, you want to see some Tom and Jerry? So I called Jeff and I said, Jeff, go and just get a big projector, put it in a multi-purpose room, and bring the best Tom and Jerry's you got. Just bring the big screen and put it in there. And so we, you know, I still not, I'm interacting, I'm pretty much talking to myself. And then I said, we're gonna go see some Tom and Jerry. And so then the counselor brought them, we came in, and then I was smart enough, I said, listen, trust me, nobody else come in there. They used to being together. Let them sit, enjoy it. Believe me, they got trust issues, all that. I grew up in the housing project. I know what I'm talking about. And so they go in and they way over there. The monitor set up, I turn it on, and Tom and Jerry's on, and I'm by the door. And because people were coming to the door they were collecting money. They were doing all kinds of stuff, getting stuffed animals, but I wouldn't let them come in. I just would put the stuff to the side. But anyway, I'm watching them, and then they giggling a little bit. That made me feel good. And then I said, oh wait, the good part's gonna come now when the other guy comes in or something. And they laugh, and then something. And then this is what really got me. When I went over and put another one in, and I came back. And I said, I forget the girls, I think Amy. I said, Amy or something. They looked, and I said, can I watch with y'all? And they whisper in the air. And it was just like that. I can't tell you what that felt like. And so I came and was able to watch it with them. And then, but they didn't, after that, they didn't want to go through the studio. They didn't want to meet nobody or nothing. And I tell you, listen, when they left, I had to go home right away. And in the middle of traffic, I was crying like a 2-year-old. Tears were just pouring down my eyes. I just couldn't believe these two little young innocent girls went through what they did. And the object of the story, though, is that all they had was our cartoons. And that helped them get through a tough time. And it just made me so proud. And Mr. Hanna's emotional too. I didn't really tell him, but I told Mrs. Hanna, and she was really shook by it. And she made sure that we found an address and sent stuff to their, you know, because they had to be in protective services and all that crap. And we were sending stuff. She was sending money and stuff. And we stayed in touch with them for a nice while. They locked the guy up for a long time. I don't know how long it was, but they got him. They were in a trailer, I think Bakersfield or somewhere like that. And he was abusing the mother, and the girls were just, they never had schooling or nothing. And they were like 9 and those kind of ages. And I'll just never forget, that was one of the saddest days. But still, it's worth telling the story, because at the end of the day, it just shows you our cartoons are not just touching kids having cereal, happy with their family. It's touching different areas of society. And so, and for them to you know, and not to be weird, I was the right guy for that. Because of different than almost anybody there. Because growing up in a housing project and some of the things I witnessed and went through prepared me for those kind of things. And so but I was an emotional wreck. I mean, I would be lying if I said I just went back. No, I had to go home. I couldn't sleep. It really, they kept scratching themselves. They had scratches all over them. And all they had was each other. But anyway, enough of that. But that's one of those stories. And it just goes to show you that those characters touch people that people don't even think about. And when you said it helped you get through some tough times, that's what triggered it in me to say, boy, I know somebody that really went through some tough times and held on to, to our stuff. So, it's really, that's the way it goes, I mean, sorry to be a downer, but that's part of the Hanna-Barbera legacy. It's not just the happy times. You're touching people that's going through difficult. And something else that's happy though is when my sister, when it was the first Gulf War, she went, and I was nervous at the studio, and I went to Mr. Hanna's office, and he says, "What's the matter, Carlton?" I said, "Mr. Hanna, my sister's in the service, and she just got sent over to Kuwait." That's where it was. And I said, and I'm here with Scooby and all this. I just don't feel good about that. And he says, "This is what you do." And he had me go around the whole studio. He's the boss. He had them do a big paper Scooby, and then they were, he had everybody in the studio sign it and all that and draw stuff. And he sent it to her. And she said, when it got to her, all the people, they were like going nuts. "Really, Scooby-Doo?" And my sister and my mother was really pleased. She was like, "Carl, did what?" And they thought I did it. They keep saying, "Carl, that's not." I said, "No, I wish I could take the credit. That was Mr. Hanna. Mr. Hanna, I was just nervous that was going on. Mr. Hanna, he turned that into that. That was him." And my sister talks about that now when she got the goodies. So, it's different levels, it really is.
Yeah, I think the characters, not just Scooby-Doo, other characters have really touched a lot of people and helped a lot of people. So
No question. And another thing really quick that comes to mind is one time Mr. Barbera, he, I was for real with him. And so he was in this meeting with these guys, and they were all kissing his tail a little too much. And he asked for me, and I came, and he says, "Carlton." I said, "Yeah, Mr. B." He says, "Come in." And it was all executives, the sponsors and all of them. And I said, everything. He says, "Tell these son of a gun something that you didn't like about our studio." Because he knew I had that conversation with him. And I said, "Ooh," he put me on the spot. He said, "No, go ahead, tell him." I said, "Well, one time me and Mr. Barbera was in the car, and he asked me, he says, Carlton, was it?" And at first I thought he was kidding around. He said, "Tell me something you didn't like." And so, and I told him, I said, "Listen, I grew up in a housing project, and when we were little, we loved Bam Bam. Bam Bam was bam, bam. And he lift his father up, and he would take care of the family." And I said, that was our character. And I thought y'all dropped the ball when he grew up. Because then when he grew up, he's talking like, "Gee, Pebbles, let's go fishing." We like, "What you do to my man?" I was like, and I said, from a standpoint where y'all could sell, whether it's to gyms, to workout equipment, to people with anger management, to communicate with gangs, y'all had the perfect character to do all that with. And you let that go. And Mr. Barbera loved it. He says, "Tell him, Carlton." And they were looking at me like, "Really? You had the nerve to tell this guy that?" But that's how our relationship got. And then he said, "Okay, you can go now." And I went out, and I was like, wow, that really meant something to him, because I kept it, and he told me too, he said, "You're absolutely right." He said, "That character really, we could have made a lot of money off of Bam Bam, but you were right." And so, it just different things at different times, You know how that goes. Crazy.
Wendy, you have some questions?
Yes. First, though, I just have to say, You have the best energy of anybody I think I've ever met. And you are just a joy to be around. And when Nikki said that we could listen to you talk for days, she wasn't exaggerating. That is 100% a fact of life. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing so much with us and for talking to us, because this is amazing. All of the studio itself and all of the people that worked in it have become a part of our lives. We don't have to have met the men and women that were
Right.
involved in it. We have the finished products that mean the world to us and to literally millions and millions of people the world over, and they will continue to grow the fandom, you know, because we have streaming, we have DVDs, we have children sometimes, and we pass
Right.
on our love for those things. And so it will just keep growing. I don't think that the Hanna-Barbera name will ever not be a legendary legacy. It will go on forever, and we really want everyone that was involved to be a part of that, and for everyone to know all of these wonderful people that gave us something that has changed our lives and for the better. Even as adults, we have rough days, and what do we want to do? We want to watch something that is wholesome and that's not offensive, and you just can lose yourself in it. It's 20-30 minutes of just everything else is gone. And here is just this one perfect thing that is not going to hurt you. It's only going to help you. You know, we have talked about life lessons that Scooby has taught us, and like that's a real thing. You can learn so many things from these Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Like it's amazing. And I'm sorry, no other studio can say that. They can't. I'm sorry. Like God bless them for everything that they have done too, but Hanna-Barbera is in a category all its own, and that is due to the people that were involved in it. All of them. Like none of the finished products would be what they are without those people that had a passion for making something for others that was just going to be wonderful and good and positive. And so you played a huge role in that. Thank you. And I just want you to know that I am positive that Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera are so proud of the man that you have become and everything that you are continuing to do. And God bless your sweet mother for raising such a wonderful person, because don't think that the world is filled with people like you, because it's unfortunately not. You are one in a million, and I want you to know that we appreciate you.
Wow.
And I know for a fact that everyone that you worked with that meant something to you is very, very proud of you, and they're watching you right now and saying, "That's our boy. That's our Carlton. Look what he's doing. Look what he's doing." So God bless you and all of those people, and just a big collective thank you for making our lives better. That's what you've done. It
Well,
really is.
you are just, I wish I could just give you a hug through this thing. Your words
Me
are
too.
just, well, that's just so beautiful. You could just feel your beautiful heart and soul. That really touched me. And, you know, mentioning Mom too. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for giving me a platform today to share some of those experiences. But that's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing to say, and a nice way to say it. I thank you. Thank you.
I mean it from the bottom of my heart, truly.
Well, there's going to be
Truly,
some
truly.
extra Scooby socks in your bag.
So I'm dying to know, who is your favorite Hanna-Barbera character? Is it Scooby or is it somebody else?
Well, it'll surprise you, really. Mr. Barbera, I try to stay away from it. It's so weird because I know all the characters so well. I know what it meant to them, and it's like sometimes it's like choosing your kids. But I think, and this will really surprise you. Oh, so many. I was, like I'm just gonna go with it. First of all, I identify Mr. Hanna as being an underdog. I go for the underdog. And with that being said, I have to say Hong Kong Phooey was pretty fun for me. He was a guy that didn't get much attention. And I love Scatman Crothers' voice, especially when he said, "Here come the ambulance." And I love the story of how Mr. Barbera, which is a really good story, how Mr. Barbera cast him, because he knew if he showed an older black man, that this, because he had, you working with the studios and Kellogg's and all, they wouldn't have got him. So when he brought the tape, but then let Scatman come to the meeting, and he played the tape, and he told him that Scatman had a cold or something, and when they heard the tape, they all laughed, they loved, they said, "We love him," and they didn't know that he was black until later. So Mr. Barbera pulled that move. So it's something about, and plus he, it's not, it's like, okay, like Scooby, right? If I was really close with Don Mesnick, if I was really close, Casey Kasem was my man, though. I gotta say that Casey Kasem was my man. He showed up every time I would call for something with Mr. Barbera or anything. That cat was there. And matter of fact, even at the memorial, I gave it up for him. That was my man. But Don Mesnick, I didn't really know as well. And so my point is, Scatman, I got to know. He would just pull me in, and that was his character. And he, and like me, he was a big Louis Armstrong fan. So when I see, I don't know, and it's karate, I like Bruce Lee. So when I see Hong Kong Phooey, that kind of resonates. But I like him more. I mean, Mr. Barbera would talk about Quick Draw McGraw one week, and then another week, McGilla with little, how much is the gorilla in the window? I mean, he would, they'd go and then the Huckleberry Hound and would sing, "Oh, my darling." So, I mean, it's like, but to me, Hong Kong Phooey was like the black guy at the studio. And that's what I was. So I just, whatever that means, I just say that when everybody talk about all of them, they never really talk about it. And I always kind of enjoyed that, his voice and stuff. But that doesn't take away from anything. I really do. I love them all. I really, 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 really love the characters.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so would you consider yourself a collector of something, and what do you collect, if anything?
Oh, good question. I like those questions. One thing I collect for sure is records. My record collection is ridiculous. I have vinyl too, I have a big giant vinyl collection. And like most guys my size, I guess I collect sneakers. Different sneakers and stuff. But there's some things that subconsciously I collect. Like, I'd have to say I collect every interview that Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera ever done that's on any kind of format. And one of the things with being popular at the studio, the guys that work in recording and work in sound, those my dudes, so they made copies of everything for me. So I guess I collect everything that with Ewo too. I got all that stuff with Ewo. And so I guess I collect that kind of stuff too. So that's what I pretty much collect. The other stuff that I have, like you guys have in the background, unfortunately, I always want to bless somebody with that stuff. So I get it and I say, there's a kid, let me give him the Scooby this or that. So I kind of get into giving with that, but and plus when people know I work in the business, they say, "You got anything from Scooby or got anything from Yogi?" And it's kind of hard to say no, when you got the whole garage full of stuff. So yeah, I guess that would be my answer to that. But that's a good question.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. That I have to share this quick story because it made me think of this as you said that, and I was like, oh, I wish that I could be more like that, more giving, and it just reminded me, one of my best friends, I've known her since I was 4 years old, and like I live in Northern Ontario, Canada, and she moved to Missouri. So she is a very long way away from me, but she messaged me just randomly one day a few months ago, just out of the blue, and she says, "I was at church this morning and I saw a little kid with a stuffed Scooby and I almost swiped it." Like, she was joking, but I laughed so hard at that. It was just such a cute,
now that is a collector there when you're gonna take the kid Scooby. Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
And thanks
Oh,
for sharing that. That is a,
yeah.
you know, when you were saying it, I was getting a visual of church.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
So we have a mutual friend named Gerald. He's Hanna-Barbera fan on Instagram.
Nice.
And he used to spend a lot of time at the studio. He was good friends with Joe Barbera and with
Yeah.
Dick Bickenbach. And he
Yeah.
remembers you. He remembers you very fondly. He's always spoken very highly of Carlton, and I think you showed him around a few times and
Yeah.
did some things with him, and like he loves you absolutely.
Oh wow.
So he used to talk about there being some kind of a store at the studio, and like anybody else that we've kind of asked is like, oh, I don't really know what you're talking about. Can you shed some light on that? Like, was
Oh,
there a store?
absolutely.
What is the
Absolutely.
story about that?
Yeah, well, it wasn't just a store at the studio, it was stores. We had stores in the mall too. We
Okay.
had the Hanna-Barbera stores in the mall. But the store in the studio, the girl that ran it, her name was Pricey. And they had, it wasn't a real big store, but they would get, you know, turnovers of good stuff in there. And it was, I'd say in the 90s. And we've had, I'd say, it only lasted maybe a year. But I remember it vividly. And I would go in there and, but I would pick up stuff from now and then in there. But not to sound a little bit privileged, but when you have access to Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera, the stuff that came through their office was the real goods. And, you know, they picked the goods and then what's left would go to the store. But the store was popular. They sold, you know, they'd have stuffed animals, they'd have books, they had watches. But they had stores in the mall that was a little bit more, they had more merchandise, and they had both Warner Brothers and Hanna-Barbera stuff there. And we used to go there. One of the things that were part of my job was I used to travel with Mr. Barbera and they go signing. Their signature was the key. So we go signing sales. And I remember one time we went to Chicago, and this lady, and I never forget, this lady with a miniskirt just put her leg up on the table and wanted him to sign her thigh. And then security was asking me, should I let him or not? And he was saying, yeah, go ahead. I was like, whoa, we don't want the press to get this. The heck with the press. I said, well, you know, we just had all that kind of stuff going on, you know. And so the stores were fun, but the store at the studio, I remember it vividly. It wasn't that big. It was in the annex building right by where the walkway is. And they had decent stuff in there. But they had stuff that wasn't quite my thing. They had, like, you know, plates, you know, with the stuff on it, collectors like that. And they had miniatures in there, I believe, and stuff like that. You know, they had that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, and no disrespect to the store, but I'm more impressed with what I see in the background right here than I did at the store. The real story is watching you three ladies. You kidding me? I mean, that's where the goods are. But I remember, to answer your question, I remember it vividly. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I remember the company store. You bet.
Yeah, it would be dangerous to let the three of us loose in one of those stores, I think.
Oh, well, I would love to fly y'all out for one of our events, you know. It would be so cool. So you can meet who's left. And you know, and that would be really nice, you know.
That's great.
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So you have mentioned that while you were at the studio, obviously you got to see all of the cool stuff going on.
Right.
And with traditional animation, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of people doing a lot of things. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into what amounts to only usually about 30 minutes of film time.
Yeah.
But for you, what was the most interesting part of the animation process for you to watch them do it?
Ooh, that's a really good question, because I used to get a kick out of the voiceover actors somewhat, but you know, it's just so many, you know, that's really a good question, I'll tell you, because I remember when they start, even later on, even when we merged with Warner Brothers, when they did Iron Giant, and you could see technology changing, you know, that process, you know, just so many different areas. And but there's something about the original process too. when it was real ink and real paint, and they had to use the movieolas. Mr. Hanna and them used to look through that screen when they were doing, that process. And so, but if I had to pick one, oh boy, that's tough. If I had to pick one, it would be early, because I was really impressive at that time. Early on, watching the voiceover actors, the good, well, they're all good, but the good ones. I remember the day when the voice of George Jetson, George Hamlin, whatever his name, he died right at the studio on the recording booth.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he
wow.
right on the recording booth. He fell right on the thing, and they put a cover over him, called the coroner. I never forget that day at the studio. That was weird. And and he was coming to work. And look at I think it was Mel Blanc who got in an accident on Sunset Boulevard, and he recorded from I don't think it was a hospital. I think it was a hospital bed at his house or something. He still recorded while he was with his neck broke or something. I mean, some of the stuff that these guys did to keep the ball rolling was really, really something. I mean, when you watch, and I remember, I had to drive Rodney Dangerfield and watching him do his voice for the young dog named Dangerfield. That was, that process was really something. But to watch Jerry Eisenberg and watch Ewo and Araj, to watch them draw and do it with such precision so quickly, it was just magical. Ewo, boy, it was like he didn't even have to look, and he was so patient with people. I mean, that's what the studio, Jerry, all of them were. It was like they wouldn't rush it. They were patient, and they would just draw and all that. And I remember one time taking Ewo, his wife asked me to take him to Cal Arts because he had a lecture for his students. And we go to Cal, me and him, I drive him to Cal Arts, and I love being with him. And we get to Cal Arts, and everybody drew whatever they did. These are art students, and they bring them up to him so he can critique them. And they were intimidated a little because of who he is. And he was so good. He says, he looked at a character and he says, "Now, what are you trying to do with that character?" And that person's nervous. They go, "Well, I thought, maybe she can be I guess my." So, "Well, no, if you're trying to do that, why don't you do this?" And he go, "Pop, pop, 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 pop," to their character. And you could see their eyes light up like, whoa. And he would really direct people, patient with them, not rushing them through. And that process, to watch what I call a genius work with the future of the business, that was a rewarding part of the process for me, to just say, whoa, just to be in a room and just say, look at my man, work with them like that. It just was, because it's different with Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera. It's a different type of celebrity. It's more like people just want to take pictures and all that kind of stuff. So we got to kind of just keep people away a little bit and try to regulate. But with Ewo, you almost really had to know who he was. And they all knew Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera. But with Ewo, those students knew who he was, and he was just patient with them, And so, and Scooby was his thing, that he was the Scooby guy. Yeah, he was the Scooby dude right there. That was hey, listen, he was a great human being, man. I love that man. He was, oh man, Ewo was really, really special. People like a couple other, USC and them had me in a podcast, and they asked me, how would I, an Asian kid too, asked me, how would you describe Mr. Takamoto? And I told him, I said, you ever watch Batman? I said, yeah. You see Batman and Robin? I said, yeah. I said, you remember Alfred? They go, oh, I said, there you go. I said, then I gave him a Speed Racer. And I said, you remember Racer X? Ah, when they get in trouble, somebody come fix that. There you go. I was like, he's like Marilyn on the Monsters. Yeah, that's Ewo right there. So, Ewo, but, I always got to rep him. Sometimes people ask me a whole lot about Mr. Hanna, Mr. Barbera, and there ain't no way in heck I'm not bringing up Ewo's.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. That's my man right there.
That's great.
He But he was that dude. When they get in trouble, any of them, he come fix it. Any of them. I ain't lying. Any of them. I ain't gonna name it. Any of them get in trouble, he will come fix it. Yeah, he come make it right. Yeah. Scooby wouldn't be what Scooby is without him.
Yeah. For sure.
That's my dog right there. And that's my man. I miss him a lot. That was my man. And it was really weird too. Really weird because Mr. Barbera wasn't doing well, and Ewo and his wife had already paid and had this cruise. And Ewo called me in his office, and he said, "I'll never forget it." And he said, "Boy, this is really serious stuff here." He said, "Look, Carlton, I know Joe ain't doing well, and I don't want to go, but my wife is really big on us going on this cruise. This is the number I want you to call me on, because when we out on the water, the phones are different." He said, "I don't want to hear something happen to Joe on CNN or none of that. I want you to call and tell me." And then he said, "I mean it." And I said, "Ewo, you my man. I'll do that, but I think we'll be all right." And sure enough, Mr. Barbera passed while he was on his cruise. And I had to call and tell him. And boy, when he got back, and then a couple of weeks later, Ewo passed. And so that was really, and so that's the other thing. When I had to MC the funeral, I lost both. Well, we all did. I shouldn't say that. But the difference between me and them all, they ain't have to host nothing. I mean, I got to be on stage and get everybody happy when I'm losing cats that really mean something in my heart, soul, and plus all the political stuff too. And so Ewo, and obviously I mentioned Ewo, and they got him a standing ovation, all that stuff. But I never forget when Ewo said, "Let me know," and I had to call him and tell him, who worked with Mr. B all those years, that he was gone. It was really, and I'm there at his house holding his hand. It's like, whoa, it was just weird. And then you say, man, do I call? Because, I got to call the studio, or, whoa. But one day I'm fly y'all out here, and we got to come hang out, y'all. Y'all cool.
So this is maybe just me being nosy, but I like mundane facts about things, like just run-of-the-mill everyday things. So are there any little tidbits about either Mr. Hanna or Mr. Barbera that you could share? Something like, how did they take their coffee? Or did one of them prefer tea over coffee? Was one a night owl and one preferred the morning? Is there any that kind of general information that we would never know? But like, I find that interesting. I would love to know anything that you would like to share.
Neither one of them was too much of a coffee person, to be honest. Mr. Barbera like a nice glass of wine. Mr. Hanna, at the end of the day, he like a little gin and juice at the end of the day. And that was his thing a little bit. Mr. Hanna loved spending time on his boat. He loved being on a boat. That was his thing. And he loved the Boy Scouts. His thing, he was a big contributor to the Boy Scouts of America. He loved that really big and all that. Mr. Barbera loved going to the theater. He would go to the bowl and all that. He was tight with all that. He would love to do all that kind of stuff. But they weren't really coffee guys. Mr. Barbera was a real proud Italian. He loved, being Italian. He would say, "Oh, Carl, take that off and put on some Dean Martin." He was one of those. And Mr. Hanna was more of a guy who would sing himself.
So who had the more interesting office, Joe or Bill?
Oh, definitely Mr. B. Mr. B had to have he had to have the best. Mr. Hanna, his office is busy. Like he worked. I ain't saying Mr. Barbera didn't work hard, because he did too. But Mr. Hanna, he's looking through. So he's got trying to get studios overseas going. He's got stuff going, on the phone and all that. Mr. Barbera, he had like a dark room with like brown shades, and he had stuffed animals sitting up, nice furniture. Even his pen had his initials on him. I mean, he Mr. Barbera was like the 007 dude of the studio. And, you know, and Mr. Hanna was like the James Cagney get it done dude of the studio. And so they just, you know, and that's what made it work. They were different. That's what really made it pop. But yeah, Mr. Barbera definitely had the better office. But Mr. Hanna wasn't sloppy. He just had piles of stuff because he just kept busy. But he wasn't a sloppy guy. But and he didn't care about stuff like that. That's why I told you. He said, "Live within your means" and all that. Like he can get the studio got them cars every year, and Mr. Barbera could get the fanciest one. Mr. Hanna didn't even want the fanciest one. He says, "No, just give me the little one with the buckeyes on it." And it was just things to him. And he did real well for himself. You know, he was smart and he helped me. I ain't talking about help me give me money. We had a saying that I'm not gonna give you a piece of fish, I'm gonna give you a fishing rod and show you how to go fishing and keep eating. And that was him. He would just tell me how to, you know, save your money and do this. And during the pandemic, it really helped because that, you know, he was so right. And so many of my friends who were making a lot more money than me are broke now, you know? And so, you know, he just really, you know, he distilled that in you, that discipline. And so, you know, he was the man. He, you know, and he was amazing, man. They both were, but in just different ways. But how did I get there? I mean, this is rhetorical, but sometimes I said to myself, how a cat like me get to share each day with both of them every day? To tell you the truth, I don't know. That's one of those things that are rhetorical. I'm trying to figure out myself because when I look back now, I just go for real. It really, and they just, you know, they left me with so much to live with, you know, in terms of inside of here and inside of here. And you know, one of the wisest things Mr. Barbera told me, and it was really wise, and it helped me. And a lot of people don't understand this, and I tell this to groups of kids all the time because it's really deep. He said, you know, this is really deep too to me. He said, don't listen to what people say, and don't even believe what they do. And that's what threw me. I said, okay, I get watch what they say, but not what they do. I said, then what do you do? And he says, what you do is you watch people's patterns. Patterns will never let you down. Words and actions can mislead you. And I said, well, actions? He said, no, listen. Say if a guy's drunk, and say if he stopped drinking for a week. Well, he hasn't created a real pattern yet to show you that he's not a drunk still. He has to create a pattern to show you who he really is. Now, you don't hold that against him or anything, but for you and what you believe, you've got people's pattern that show you. When you go look for a job, they want to see a resume. You got a pattern of what you did, not just that I'm a good guy and, you know. And so, you know, and that helped me because I met a lot of people that are full of baloney. And I give them a minute. Like a lot of people fall for it, and I wait a minute, and then I see the pattern, and I say, "Here come more baloney," you know. And so, you know, that's some of the wisest stuff that he told me.
Yeah, it's excellent advice. Yeah. It is really good. So my last question for you before I turn it over to Alexa is, if you had the opportunity to say anything right now to Mr. Barbera and Mr. Hanna, what would you say?
Wow. Oh boy, that's something. I'm just gonna go for it. First. Oh, wow. First, I say I miss you guys so much, and I'm grateful to God for that, for that journey. Forever grateful. Thank you would be an understatement. That would not cover it. Only in this beautiful country that's going through one of the worst times ever in terms of race relations and all that kind of stuff. Only in this beautiful country could something like my story with them happen. I'd say your legacy is in every breath that I got as long as I'm on this planet. And of course, with the wonderful ladies I'm talking to here and millions of people around the world. But at the end of the day, I say yabba dabba do.
Amen.
I don't know what ask me where that came from.
First off, before I go into my questions, I'm pretty sure I could speak for all three of us when I can't say enough. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing all of your stories with us. We really, really do appreciate it so, so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
And for my first question, do you remember your initial thoughts and reaction when you first walked into the Hanna-Barbera studios?
Yeah, my initial reaction was just thinking about what they, when I saw it, I thought of the Flintstones, I thought of those different companies, but my reaction was more so I needed a job. And no, really, it was like, I got to figure this thing out. And it was just more of, I was feeling maybe a little pressure, and I didn't have a chance or the opportunity at that point to even think about their legacy or it was more, my first thought was like, man, if I can get some work, this will be great. So it was really about that. I didn't have time to say, this or that or that or this. It was really about finding a way to not for that for that $600 to not turn into 5 and the 4 and the 3. So that's where it was. It had no, I couldn't even think about all that other stuff. Cause you gotta remember, I ain't gonna meet none of them, and I just came from another studio, So it's just like that's what that was. Couldn't think of anything, and like, oh wow, it'd be great to know. None of that. It was just like, man, I need to figure this out. And I didn't think nothing was gonna happen anyway. I was just like, where am I go from here? And maybe and things like, So it was just that.
And once you were really entrenched in the studio, can you walk us through what a typical day might look like for you?
Oh, when I first got there, or when, or after a while, or what?
After a while, after you were.
Oh,
really,
it's so many. Well, it's so many different phases. Like when I was first there, I was just like, wow, walking on eggshells, trying to learn everything, and then being looked at funny by certain people, and other people being friendly. And just kind of, trying to figure out what's what, not too sure of myself, and that kind of stuff. And even wondering when I'm gonna get my first paycheck, even because my money. So it was like that. But then from there, I start, especially when you go on the rounds and somebody say, I need like Nelda, I need number 2 pencils, or I need some copy sheets, or I need ink and paint, a number of this. And, once you start doing it, you start meeting people, and they, I think of Glenn and Alice Leopold, and they were real nice, and they say, where are you from? And you came out here, and oh, Bill told us about you. So you start getting more common because you start getting personalities and all that. It went from there. And then from there, it was popping after that. It was like, oh man, and people give me high fives in the hallway and Zapp, what's up, baby? It was like that. It got good after a while. It took a while, but after a while going in there, it was like really something. And then after, after a couple of years, it was like, you were Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera's guy. So, it really, it was, it made it fun to come in. And the thing is, except for a few people, it really was a family. I mean, when I think of Mr. Barbera's secretary, Maggie Roberts, who I love, she just was so incredible. And when I think of Jerry Eisenberg and all those guys, and everybody, they were, them guys they just make you feel welcome. So it felt good, interacting with all of them and all that. It felt really good. Those guys showed you love. And today they still, they still reach out and make sure you're good. Yeah, that's how it was to the very end. It was just, it just got better and better. It started off iffy, but it got better and better and better and better and better. And it just got to where it was like, oh man, I can't wait to even come here. And then you never know, one time Mr. Barbera's daughter, she set it up, sent me to get a passport, and I got to go overseas to our studio that was over in Taipei, in Taiwan, and they had a big picture of Mr. Hanna in the lobby over there. And, it was just like, coming from back east, I was like, oh, this is going down. This is happening. So, yeah, it was fun. It was really fun. Everybody was cool.
And based on that, how would you describe the atmosphere at the studio? And did that change at all through the years?
Oh, yeah, definitely changed. Because what happened is it was, the parent company was changing. You went from Great America, you went to Turner, you went from Turner, you went to Warner Brothers. So once your parent company changes, they come in with a different kind of a structure, and their executives are different and all that. It affected me personally less than it did other people, because they had to work on other shows and send stuff to other places, and some of them lost their jobs, so it was different in that regard. But for me, I just had to take care of Mr. B and Mr. H. But it affected me in the sense that a lot of people that I not just liked, I loved, that worked there, either wasn't there anymore, or they weren't happy, or their jobs changed. So each parent company that took over, it was a different kind of an atmosphere. It really was. At first it was pretty, Great American. Those guys would come to town, the big timers, once in a while. But for the most part, and I got to kick it with Ted Turner and all of them too. That was when he was, that was kind of cool. He was a different dude, but it was cool. I remember driving him to Santa Monica, because he was married to Jane Fonda at the time, and I would drive him over there. And he was a different kind of dude. He was an atheist. I knew that. He didn't really deal with God, because he didn't want me to talk that stuff. But he was cool though. He was smart. He like when I told him where I grew up in New York, he knew everything about the area. He knew how many stores, he knew how many schools, he knew his brain was he was incredible with that. And so I got to deal with him. He was an exec and all that. One of the new executives when Turner took over. And then the Great American guys, they were different. They were from Cincinnati. And Carl Linder and those guys, I had to deal with them too. And they were a different culture, kind of. And they liked me a lot. Well, they knew my job with Mr. B and them. But that was different. You had to kind of watch how you move with them. It was like, I don't want to say it's like being at a Trump rally, but you just got to kind of, you better change the subject, if you want to be around. You just better, if you want to stay in that game. So it was a different deal with them. But but the thing that was good about that was they brought in a guy named David Kirshner as our president, and he was amazing. I love him right now. I love him to death. I really do. I mean, when you say I'll tell anybody. Yeah, I love that man. I do. That cat early in the game. When he first came in, my brother died. I got a call that my brother was dying in the hospital, and David Kirshner didn't even know me that well. And he came in. He said, "Call Carlton in my office." I came in his office. I didn't know. All I knew was the new boss was there. He hugged me and he said, "Look, I heard about your brother not doing well. I need you to know that your job is really safe. And we love what you do for Joe and Bill. They speak highly of you. And I'm going to talk when you get back and things settle down. I want to find out what you want to do. We're going to make you happy." And he said, and he gave me a real hug and said, "I'm so sorry about your brother and all that." And I was like, whoa, the new dude is like that. And then I go to my office, and everybody was, he ain't know me that good though, but everybody else was sending me like flowers and cards and all that. And then I get to my office, and a couple minutes later, he sent me a ticket. He said, "Go, an open ticket, go home and see your brother." And when I went home, and boy, I ain't gonna talk about this long because I get emotional. I went home to see my brother, and that's the last conversation I had with my brother ever, with that ticket that he gave me. And then, and then I came back to LA, and then I don't know, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, my brother passed, and I went home, and my mother called me, and of course she was sad, crying. I said, "What's the matter?" I said, it's gonna be all right. And she said, "No." She said, "Who's this guy, David Kirk? He helped with some of the funeral stuff and all that." I mean, that was my intro to even meeting him. And then when we talk about stuff, he won't let me take the easy road out. He just say, whether it's about race or anything, he said, "No, I need you to tell me what you really feel." And he and his wife, beautiful wife Liz, and his kids, they just been incredible to me. So there's always somebody in my life that helped me navigate through, all the other stuff. So, it's been great.
And going off of that, walking into the Hanna-Barbera studios, how much diversity would you have seen with people working at the studio?
Well, when there was Iraj, who was an Iranian American. There was Iwo Takamoto, who was a Japanese American. There was a couple Black people. There was Nelda, who worked at Ink and Paint upstairs, and there was a guy that worked in Xerox, an older guy from the old school, and he had a deep voice. He go, "Yeah, right, okay, yeah," and he was from New Orleans or something, and he was a dentist. I never forget him, and he was old school Black, what I call him. And what I mean by that, I never forget, and he'd hate me to tell this, but I mean, one time he looked for me. He said, "Come in, Carlton, come in." And I go and I said, "What's up, Dennis?" He said, "Guess who was here?" And I said, "Who?" He said, "Harry Belafonte." I said, "Really?" And then he looked both ways like this, and he was with a white woman. Just, like if he said that out loud, he'd get hung. That's the way he said it to me. I was like, "Why you never look around to tell me that?" That just hit me. I don't know why I'm repeating that. But that was one of the things that I just couldn't believe it. I was like, they got you like that where you can't even, you gotta go. If you get caught saying white woman, you're gonna get hung or something. I said, dang, that's a different world. I couldn't believe that. I mean, it was just, I bring that up because that was his culture. I guess that's how he stayed in the game. But I was like, I won't be here long if they expect me to sing that song. But the culture was of course it's tense as soon as you get bought out by another company. But when they brought David in, when he think I just be blowing smoke at him, he really does, because he's like Mr. Hanna. He's so Mr. Hanna. The worst thing I had liked about Mr. Hanna, and his daughter's like that too. They don't really take compliments well. He gives them, but he's so humble and modest. Like if you said, "Mr. Hanna, you and Mr. B created these wonderful cartoons," and he say, "Oh, Carlton, he says a lot of people were involved in that. Don't kid me with that." And one time I was showing some Boy Scouts, and I was showing some Boy Scouts around the building, around the studio, and I brought them. And at the end of it, you always take them, Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera. So I bring them Mr. Hanna's, and Mr. Hanna's, he knew I was coming, and I'm telling the Boy Scouts, I says, "Guys, are you ready to meet the co-founder of Scooby, the Jetsons, and all that?" They said, "Yeah." And I said, "And guess what?" And they said, "What?" I said, "He was a distinguished Eagle Scout." They go, "Ah." So he's looking at me with his eyebrow up, and he says, "Carlton, when you finish with the kids, come up and see me, will you?" I said, "Yeah." So I'm still going on about this. And so I take him down the bus, the chartered bus takes him. I said, "Mr. Hanna, you want to talk to me?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Carlton, you know how I feel about the rest." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I saw you with those little kids. You the best darn BSer I've ever seen in my life." I said, "Mr. Hanna, I wasn't BSing though. You are Eagle Scout. You were a distinguished Eagle Scout. you co-owner of the building? He says, yeah, but you were BSing those poor little kids. But that's the way he saw it. He was, but Mr. Barbera, he could deal with all that. You could say nice. But Mr. Hanna was, and sometimes even his daughter, I tell her, and she hates it, but I'll tell her, I say, Bonnie, you're beautiful. That's BS. I'm like, no, it ain't BS. You're beautiful inside and out. And so they, that's where they don't take it good. That's he don't take compliments well, but everything else was great. But to really answer your question, yeah, it depends on what period, because we were, the parent company was so many different ones, and it was a different culture for each. And to be specific, under Great American, those guys back coming from Cincinnati and stuff, they were a little, they treated me good and stuff, but you could just feel the energy. They were a little tight, you know what I mean? And but because of David Kirshner, I was able to enjoy that time. And then when Turner came, it got kind of fun because you were able to do some things. But before all that, when I think more, Great American, I think, and Taft, I'm sorry, Taft was before that, and that's when. But that was cool. I used to see Schwarzenegger and them come through, and that he was doing the Running Man and all that. But again, I was younger, trying to find my own steps. So as things progressed, I got more comfortable, and things worked out, like that. And then later, it was like I hate to say it, but it was like I wasn't even working for the studio. It was like I was working for Mr. and Mr. Hanna's. It was like, you're mine, it was, everything got glued into them, so it became like that.
And how did you see the studio evolve and change in terms of like technology advancements and changes to the animation process itself?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's really interesting. Again, I have to go back to Iron Giant when I just saw different kinds of animation. I saw him bringing, when I first got there, any computers there were like big as this room, and the screen was about that size. And then you start seeing technology come in on that end. And then I start seeing how people, even now, working from, not because of the pandemic, but you can record from home, and just certain different things that you saw kind of changing. It was good and bad. The good is that it made things more snappier, and it was more convenient for some people, but it was bad because you missed the human interaction. The human interaction can't be underestimated. And because even between takes and stuff, you get a feel for some people, and you kind of vibe, and you build a chemistry. And with technology, sometimes it separates, it gets in the way of that. And as beautiful as this is that we're doing now, if I was in a room with y'all, this would be a whole different experience. And so that's where I just see where technology is good and it's bad, and just like anything else as it goes forward. And I like the human interaction. I did. People who are more introverted, I think, are better at what's happening now. But extroverts like myself, you like to say, "Hey, what's up, man? Who won the game?" High-fiving in the hall. So technology and how's it going forward has, it's a plus and a minus.
Are there any little known facts or secrets about the studio and or the Hanna-Barbera creation and animation process that you could now share with us?
Oh yeah, I can, I got answers for everything. One of the secrets is when earlier on, even the early Hanna-Barbera, especially at MGM, all the sound, they had budgets were so small, all the sound effects was Mr. Hanna. He would bring frying pans and forks and make sounds in the background. He'd make certain sounds with his voice, kick his feet and do different things like that. So a lot of people didn't know that he would kind of do stuff that kind of way. Let me see, with Mr. Barbera, what would be a secret that is fair to share with him that people wouldn't know? Because he would put it out there. I think a lot of people wouldn't understand, or well, they'd understand, but they wouldn't know his love for music too. Mr. Hanna was really a music man. He was in all the jingles. Him and Hoyt Curtin, they made those. But Mr. Barbera, we would do karaoke at his house, in his car, we'd be singing "Fly Me to the Moon" and all that. He would, he would be more into that. And some of the tidbits at Hanna-Barbera that you didn't know. There was a water well down in the ground, and sometimes the water would come up. And we'd have to kind of, do stuff. They'd have to move stuff with that. It was a water well underneath the ground there. I remember that, and I remember, and one of the things is Jamie in the warehouse, the big, strong lesbian lady. She was like, I can't believe I haven't talked about it, but she, just give you an insight, she was tough as nails. And she wore men's clothes, and she worked in the warehouse, was outdoors, and she'd do her stuff in there. And one day, when I first started, they said, look, Carlton, you need to go meet Jamie, get it out the way. Don't think she's gonna act that way because you're Black. You just gotta go deal with it. She's gonna use bad language, she's gonna be mean, but Mr. Hanna brought her over from his other company, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. And if you know me, I'm up for the challenge. I go over with it, and I had to bring mail to her. I go over and says, you must be Jamie. Hey, I'm Carlton. I just started. And she looked at me and she said, honey, I don't give a good goddamn who you are. You a loser. And they sending all these losers over here. The company's going downhill fast. And but I knew it wasn't about, because they told me, I knew it wasn't about me. And so I said, I looked at her and I said, you know what? I could put she said, don't give me no mail. I ain't the mail boy. That's Tom. And so, and Tom was looking at me because she always usually gets a fight. And I said, I ain't fighting her. And so I put the mail down and I said, you know what? I like you anyway. And then I just went away. So now I got to it. Now later in the day, she sees me and she said, somebody call that colored boy over here. And so they call me. That's how she talked. And then I come on and say, yeah, Jamie. She said, look, I just want you to know, I didn't yell at you because you colored. I don't like nobody, honey. And then that was my introduction to her. And you couldn't win her over easy either. One day I went out, I got some ice cream, and I said, you know what, it's hot. I'm gonna bring an ice cream for Jamie. I bought her ice cream, and that day she was so mad, she was cussing herself out. She was in front of the typewriter saying, I know one thing, if the UPS guy comes through, I'm gonna put my foot up, and that. She was just mumbling, talking to herself, and I said, woo. And so I had the ice cream, and I said, Jamie, I brought your ice cream. She didn't say thank you or nothing. She just grabbed it and stepped on the typewriter and just kept doing it. And I said, whoa. So then, so later, and the day before it was time to go home, I said, that's some crap. I'm going over and get me a boy or something. And I went over to her and I said, Jamie, she said, yeah. I said, how'd you like the ice cream? She said, it was okay, but you could have got me 2 scoops, you cheap son of a gun. But I know it sounds offensive, but I adored her. She reminded me of Granny on the Beverly Hillbillies. And what I liked is the executives that had their nose in the air and thought they were big shots, she would let them have it. And I enjoyed that. I used to say, get them, Jamie. And so, those are tidbits I guess a lot of people don't know. And, what else? I mean, it was a lot of stuff that went on there. Little tidbits that people don't know. Mr. Hanna with the background stuff. Lobby Bobby, he didn't do much. That's probably it. I mean, it wasn't a whole lot of super underground stuff. But Jamie was a hit, boy. I just loved her. I thought something was wrong with me because I never enjoyed getting cussed out so much in my life. And then I used to egg her on, and she got hip to it too, because I used to say, Jamie, the UPS guy said that he gonna knock you out when he see you. And so I want to see her go off. And they would call me in my office and say, Carlton, Jamie's breaking in a new UPS guy. You better get out here. And it'd be a big Black guy, and she'd be in the middle of the row with him like, what you want to do? And the guy don't know what to do. He said, you better stop talking. I talk to you the way I want. And then he would sign the papers, and he don't know what, and he take off. And then we go, Jamie. Because she was unique. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad I got a chance to give Jamie some love,
What year did you start working at Hanna-Barbera?
I started working at Hanna-Barbera in 86. Early. I was there. Wow, when you think about how many years, wow. Yeah, I just came out and man, wow, as a young puppy, and wow, Mr. Hanna just said kaboom. And look at the way I talked to him when I met him, and he still gave me a chance. Wow. And then it just grew like that. That is crazy when I think about it. It really, really is. And the relationship with his family, and it's just you just I just wouldn't believe it, But but he told me, he said even early on, he says, the real one you have to win over is my wife. And so that was the beginning of that was where it really was. But I loved her so much. And she loved me too. She used to tell me because she liked it quiet, she used to say, Carlton, you're the only one that talk loud that I love. And I said, well, I love you too, Mrs. Hanna. But, you could tell we cared a lot because she'd be hard on a housekeeper. She said, make that, Carlton's here, make the cake now. And I look at Maria and say, I'm sorry, Maria. I know that you don't do that for me. You work for her. I get it. I say I ain't got nothing to do with that. But she was always good. Maria wasn't bad. But I felt bad because I was like, come on. but that's crazy. But anyway, you got something else you want to answer? Anything?
I do. First of all, how old were you when you started working at Hanna-Barbera?
Oh, I started working at Hanna-Barbera when I was like 20. Yeah, so I walked in the door and was like, whoa, just straight from back home and just trying to figuring it out, Wow. It's hard to really, when I take a trip in my brain down memory lane, I just go, wow, I was a puppy. Yeah.
And you alluded to this a bit, but did you have the chance to sit in the voiceover booth during recordings? And do you have any interesting stories to share from that experience?
But for the most part, when you sit in a recording booth, it's important that you be quiet yourself. And so I guess what you do is you see the producer, the engineer, the director on this side of the window, and then the boom microphones and the talents on that side of the window. And they have a mic when they say, you could talk to them from this side to that side. And it's just interesting watching them interact with each other, And some people, like if you look at the greats, like Mel Blanc and them cats, man, they could do so many different voices that you think is 8 people in a room and there's only one. But the newer generation, some of them were good in that regard. But they mostly had really distinct, good character voices that they would do. And so you would see it. And to be honest with you, after about 20 minutes, for me, I said, okay, I've seen enough. And because you got to be quiet. And you just sitting there and you kind of watch. You say, okay, I get it. And you see their scripts and them interacting. And then you want to go see something that's really popping. So it was kind of more of that for me, that kind of thing. They wanted me to read for a character or two at a time or two, but I really wasn't super duper interested.
Were there any instances where you were able to be involved and contribute in the creative process? Like, were you ever a sounding board for ideas or anything?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, I did some writing on an episode of Static Shock. I've sat in a couple of brainstorming meetings, especially under the Turner people. Fred Seibert would value my opinion. He would bring me in and we would talk about different ways of how would you do that? Would you do it different? I even get that now. And just for a tidbit, a lot of people don't know this. Here's something you said earlier, it just came to mind. Seth MacFarlane, he used to work with us at Hanna-Barbera. And I remember him vividly when he worked on you know, there was all those shows like Cow and Chicken and Dexter's Laboratory and Johnny Bravo and the Powerpuff Girls. Those were shorts that were done. And I remember him being there. And I remember showing his mom around the studio, giving her a tour. And, you know, he's gone on to, you know, Family Guy and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he started, I remember him vividly over at Hanna-Barbera. Yeah, he was great. Matter of fact, he might not remember this, and I hope he see this so I could check him. I remember one time Ronaldo, the janitor, came to me and said, Carlton, I said, what? He said, there's a guy over there and he does an impression of you. And it's funny. And I said, who? And he said, you know, because Seth, he all polished up now. But he said, you know, the white dude with the goofy with the glasses. And I said, who? And he said, and so I went and it was Seth. And I said, and I remember I came and it was Steve Marmel and Bruce Hartman, them are the guys that was with him, I remember. And I asked him and he turned red, he wouldn't do it. And then about a month later, Ronaldo again said, come in. And he took me and we went over and he was doing me. And he was going, yeah, Mr. Barbera. He's going, yeah, Mr. Barbera. Yeah, my man. Yeah, where we going now? We going to eat? And I'm watching him and he don't know I'm watching him. And when he turned around, he looked like a hammer hit him. He was like, whoa. And I said, you got to work on that, man. And but Seth was, I want to remember that. Yeah, he did an impression of me back then. And that was funny, you know. Seth. So that's a tidbit. He, you know, he worked at the studio, and of course the Jack Nicholson thing at the studio, you know. And you know, a lot of people who came, you know, like I said, you know, working with Jonathan Winters coming in. I remember Robin Williams being there sometime. I remember Farrah Fawcett coming and doing some voices. Whoopi Goldberg coming doing some voices. I remember Rock Hudson used to call. He came here, but he used to call all the time. And those guys would, you know, come in and you always see some celebrity voice people coming through and stuff like that. It was always rocking over there. And we was right next to Universal, so you always see. And David Kirshner used to take me over to Amblin because he had deals with them. So I'd go over. It would pop him for me. I used to go with him over to Steven Spielberg and all them over there. Yeah, it was like, I was like, for real. He was like, yeah, come with me. And then and then Michael Jackson, I see him more than you realize because he was tight with David and Mr. B. So he comes see David and he goes, Carlton. And he remembered me and I go, Mike, what's up? And we talked, and then another time he comes see Mr. B, and there I am again. He was like, we keep running into each other. And I knew security guy, Bill. Bill was my man. He was older too, but I heard he was quick with a gun. But he was an older dude. He was a quick draw McGraw type. And he hired all the other security for the doors and all that. But those were, you know, those were good times. Good times. Good old times.
Particularly with Scooby-Doo, but did you ever imagine that Hanna-Barbera cartoons would have such a lasting legacy?
I definitely didn't think Scooby. The more I learned too, I definitely was surprised about Scooby. But I think I learned more from Scooby than any other character, just in terms of not, you know, to go all the way through and not finish. And when you look at, you know, understanding about merchandising and marketing and those sort of things, when you really understand the power of those things and what they do, I think that I got the biggest learning curve with that. And I think that Scooby, for me, connected me in a spiritual way with Iwo Takamoto in a big, strong way. And so to be specific about your question, I thought, you know, it's hard to not think the Flintstones would do what it did. The Jetsons is remarkable because they only had like 12 episodes at first, but what they invented is really something. You know, the iMac computer, the people mover at the airport. So they were, you know, that they predicted a lot that's happening now. But with Scooby, I wasn't too sure. I thought it would be like a good Halloween thing. Like at Halloween time, it would be popping and then it would go back in the cut. I didn't know it would have the wheels that it really has like that. You know, the kids go crazy for Scooby, and adults too. But I just didn't know that. You know, that was one where I just said, "Whoa!" You know, it really is. You know, and you know the whole story about Fred Silverman on the way to the meeting. You know, just singing "The Strangers in the Night," and then Scooby Dooby Doo had a name came, and just how it all came together. And then you know you don't want to leave out Kenny Spears and Joe and Ruby and them guys too. And so you know when you know the whole game, you just go wow, you know the magic of it. And then they start making more and more. And you know, they was making them like cheese sandwiches at one time. I was getting a Scooby at my desk every other day. I was like, Scooby meets the Globetrotters. Scooby hollers at the bad wolf or something. I was like, y'all ain't kidding. This week, boy, Scooby was up to everything. I thought, what are you gonna come out with next? Scooby meets Obama? I mean, yeah, they were coming out with them things like French fries, man. But I liked them all. But I was like, they are really. Somebody said, crank them things out, you know. But I you know, most of the time I look at the original one. Most of the time, you know. And you know,
and my last question would just be, what do you think it is specifically about the characters themselves that has lasted the test of time?
I think that they're relatable, and I think that the criticism that the criticism that Hanna-Barbera got in the early days from the likes of Chuck, you know, what was his name? Chuck Jones and some of the Disney people, they criticized Hanna-Barbera, let's be honest. But they said they used limited animation and all that kind of stuff, and they didn't have the budgets. Because, you know, Disney and Army had fantastic stuff and all that. And they were great stuff what they did. But what made Hanna-Barbera characters last long, they didn't have all that side jive, so you could really concentrate on the characters and see how they interacted. And what they did with the Flintstones was absolutely brilliant. I mean, how you use the washing machine and make it talk to, and you know, the saber-toothed cat and the dinosaurs. And, you know, I mean, you know, they just kind of, you fell in love with the characters. And so it wasn't just, you know, you watch some of these other shows and they're great. I ain't taking away from that because those are great too. But you go, wow, look at the stars in the sky, and oh, look at this. You know, you all over the place with the Flintstones stuff. They pretty much the same houses they keep going by all over and over. So you ain't paying attention to that, but you are paying attention to Pebbles or Bam Bam or whatever. So it makes you zone in on the main characters, and there's a story there. Now, if you were zoning in on and wasn't nothing happening, that'd be a problem. But they put it in the story, so you knew what was happening there. Whether you know, Pebbles is go ga. Or, you know, you look at that and Joe Rockhead and Mr. Slate, you kind of interact with them. Or you know, Scooby-Doo, gee, Scoob, let's go to, you know, you would kind of, well, I'm sorry. You know what I'm driving. You know, at last, because of that, you tie into, you know, to the characters. You know what I mean?
Can you tell us a little bit more about Joe Ruby and Ken Spears and what their role was on Scooby-Doo or with the cartoons?
A good thing. It's really interesting when you talk about them because particularly Kenny Spears. A lot of people don't know this, but for a while, Kenny Spears, he for a couple summers, he got to stay with the Hannas. He got to stay at their house. He went to school with Mr. Hanna's son, and they were really close. And Mr. Hanna's son used to say, "Can he spend the night?" and all that. And he did. And that's how he got into animation, by going to school with his son and being there. Mr. Hanna gave him a job at the studio, and they worked it out for me. And then Joe Ruby and him met. They were like, for me back then, they were like not quite, but like the Joe and Bill part two. And the reason why I say that is because both of them were way different. I mean, Joe Ruby was kind of more of an introvert, and Kenny Spears was more of out. You know, he was more out. But what they did was they added a lot of life to the characters. They were really inspirational on adding to the stories, they would, some of the things that they came up with suggestion. There was even kind of a, a back and forth. It was like, the Ewo side and their side, it was kind of for a while it was come together, but there was a time where it was like, it was kind of Ewo's baby, but they were running with it and doing good things with it. So they were really big on the creative process as Scooby started to grow, and very instrumental. Scooby wouldn't have the success they had without them either. And so I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, without Kenny and Joe Ruby. They were, I knew Kenny really well. Joe didn't talk that much. He would just go, and he would say like, all he would say is, "You do a good job with Joe and Bill." And that's about it. That's all you get out of him. And he'd just laugh. That was about it. But Kenny Spears, he had a lot of kick in him. He was like, "Carl, what's up, baby boy? What you doing today?" He used to say, he would interact, and and he had a wife that was a little bit handicapped, and he was really good with her. And I would, she was nice. I would meet her and meet them, and because even all of them, they go out to eat together and talk to him. And Kenny was my man. He was cool, and he dug me, I think, because I was so close with the Hannas, and he spent a lot of time there as a young kid, and he knew how much they liked me, and so he would go out of his way to let me know that me and him was cool. He was that kind of dude. But again, Joe Ruby was an introvert, man. That cat, you got nothing out of him. I mean, he wasn't mean enough. He just, I don't even think he'd have to go on the internet just to learn how to burp, it seemed like. And nothing coming out of him, boy. That joker. All the years I'd be around him too. It's like, it just was like, you get a, that was about it. Yeah.
And then my last question is, what have you been doing since you worked at Hanna-Barbera?
Oh boy, that's a beautiful question. What I've been doing since Hanna-Barbera. My music business, my DJ business has absolutely been going well. What I've been doing a lot of is going and doing a lot with homeless kids. I've been trying to be a part of some of the solution to what we're dealing with the homeless. I've been trying to be supportive of my hometown back east and some of the things that we're doing through my mom with the, we try to, with the different fundraising for scholarships and that kind of thing. I try to do that. I also, there's people, family who Mrs. Hannah's neighbors, and it's Angela and Stephen White, and they're really good people, and they're close friends of Mrs. Hannah. And I don't want to get too much, but her father was David Rose, a big composer, and he did all the music for Bonanza. He did all the music for Jack Benny and Little House on the Prairie and all that. They happened to be Mrs. Hannah's neighbors. And what happened is, once they lost their parents, I was really instrumental in breaking down Mr. Hanna and Ms. Barbera's house and helping them, do what they need to do. And so they asked me, they wanted to pay me to bring me in to do that. And after I did that, we got so close that now they are very generous financially. That I house sit for them. And it just all kind of stuff. I go to the Hollywood Bowl. We just went to see Diana Ross together. I go to their other house out, and they've just been absolutely incredible. They're just, so like Mr. Hanna used to say, you got to have different streams of income. And because if you only have one stream, somebody cut it off, you're dead. And so you need different streams. And so I've been having different streams, and I've been in a position where I can still give. So I've been doing a whole lot of that. And to be honest, the pandemic was a blessing and a curse. It was a curse because obviously you can't see your loved ones as much, and you might get sick. You got to cover yourself. And going out and places are closed, people lose I can go on and on. But the blessing, it makes you put on the brakes and reevaluate stuff and think about what's really important. It's some time that you can get to reflect. It's a time that you get to reassess, and you kind of, so it's been a blessing in that regard. But I'm in the best position that I could have dreamed of. And I know, right, and I don't say that cocky because I know right now there are people going through a lot of trouble. Look at Florida right now. You look at the political discourse. Families are breaking up because you got to pick a side. And I'll tell you, I mean, in my opinion, and we ain't going there too strong, but I'll just tell you, neither one of them represent me. The Democrats or the Republicans don't represent me. I'm more conservative than the Democrats, and I'm more liberal than the Republicans. Nobody's gonna put me in a box that's gonna separate me from people. I will not let it happen. And that's what it is. It's extremes right now, and so for me, that's somebody else's fight. That ain't for me. I'm about love and about peace and about what we have in common. You want to talk about what we don't agree on? Go talk to somebody else, not this guy. So, that's where I'm at. That, my life has to do with just peace and putting peace around me and making somebody else smile. And the best thing I love about my life is blessing somebody who don't expect it. That's a beautiful thing. When somebody don't expect something, you do something for them. That's really nice stuff. When you got an old neighbor up the street and you go shop and buy some stuff with groceries and you put it by their door with a little note and you knock on the door and they come to the door, and that's the stuff I do. That's what it's all about. And so that's where I'm at. And I thank God that I'm in a position where I could do that. But that's where I'm at in my life right now. It's just, that's where I'm, that's my space. And so I got a couple different streams of income, whether it be, the roses. I got lightweight pension from Hanna-Barbera, and Hannah's been good to me. Like I said, my music, I've got enough going on with that, and just looking at what I could do and then doing it. If you're looking for a hero, you're looking for somebody to do the right thing, well, do it yourself. I'm sorry, that's just my philosophy. You know what I mean? You help the lady across the street. You don't wait. Don't say, "Oh, that guy didn't help the lady." You help her. So that's just, that's Mr. Hanna though. That's him driving me with that. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. And you have a heart of gold. And
Oh.
like Wendy said, like you are not like most people. You are just amazing.
Well, let me just say this, and because I know we ended and I wouldn't be, because this is important to me. First of all, God bless you and your family. And I believe in enjoying the moment. And this moment has been really special to me because I was able to go into some places in my brain that really helped me remember and reflect on some things that are very important to people that are here who are not here, and to the process of what we do and how we affect people. And you beautiful ladies have been nothing but excellent in what you do. You've been patient, you've been letting me blab, and you guys have just been absolutely amazing. But I'll just end on this part. I want to just, if I can, so many people. I want to, thank God. I want to thank, Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera and Mrs. Hanna and their families, of course. I want to thank David Kirshner and his family, because they, the Simmons family, obviously, Stephen and Angela, just so many people that help make me, who I am. And, my family, of course, back east, and, the church and the charities that we're involved in. And my DJ friends, Lee and Sheeta and Don Moore, everybody and Terry Clark, everybody that make me who I am, past and present. And most of all, besides God, I just want to thank my beautiful mother. I want to thank my mother, Alma D. Clay, who made us siblings and sacrificed a whole lot in the housing project just to give us a chance. And that chance affects other people and make the world better. And that will always, be my rock, and my queen is my mom. So I just thank you for the chance to say that. And if I'm not mentioning you, like, I'm sure Jerry, he will, forgive me. But thank you to everybody who's just contributed to making this a really incredible life. And so you know, and you will be getting goodies, y'all. Don't hold me to that. Like in a couple weeks, if you don't get nothing, you text me. You be aggressive. You say, "What's up with the goodies?" So tell me, because I am watch. You know, you don't know who you're talking to. My word is my word is my bond. And you guys are incredible. Thank you so much. And thank you for keeping our legacy going. And I say our because I'm part of that fabric. And I'm representing for all of them who are not here. And you ladies loving Scooby and all them goodies in the background. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, and if I can, I just want to get a picture. I want to take my phone and get a picture of that screen so I can show somebody what y'all got in the background, okay? Because that's incredible. I can't wait to show Bonnie Hanna.
Oh my goodness.
She's gonna get a kick. Oh wow. I gotta do that. Yes, yes. No doubt. Yabba dabba doo. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, I gotta yeah. Okay, there we go. Okay, one more. Let's see. I'm a silly man, ain't I? I think I got that. All right. Well, thank you for take me down memory lane. That was really fun, and you guys are terrific. Really, God bless you, and take good care of yourself. And if I had to give you all some advice, okay, a little bit of advice. 2 pieces of advice I learned, not just for them. One is you got to have a delete button. Any negative come in your life on any level, if you can, hit that delete button, get it out of there. And the other thing is enjoy the moment and surround your spirit as best you can with peace, because stress is the enemy and love is the cure. Okay?
Yeah.
Amen. Amen.
That is so true. Thank you so much. And I want to do a quick shout out to Scott Gerald because he connected us.
Oh, Scott, that's my guy. These kids are grown now. I remember they were little. Scott, man, how could I not mention him? Scott, not only is Scott super duper talented, but man, I mean, he was like, he and Ewo was really close. And Ewo loved it. Ewo too, he was like a son to Ewo. And Scott's amazing and kind and you could you talk about patient and spend time with him. And he never aged. He always looked young. I love Scott. Scott, that's my man. Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad I got to get that in. Scott's good. I used to deal with him and Joe Sitka and all those guys. Those are my dudes. Yeah. Wow.
Well, thank you. We appreciate every second that you gave us. And
Yes, thank
like
you.
my face hurts from smiling so much.
Well, you guys are awesome. You rock. And whoever your family is really fortunate because you can feel the love, the sincereness, all that. So, God bless your wonderful family and loved one. But remember, keep a delete button because some people will come in and you let them into your space. It's like, it's like poison that get in there. You got to kind of protect. You got to have that, everybody can't get in there. You better protect that little area that you have around you and get used to it. Because if not, you ain't going to be able to have your energy positive. You ain't. If people are draining, you got to have that button, boy. Everybody can't go. Just like it's day is night, it's left is right. You got to cut that cord. So do what you got to do.
That's right.
Right? Much love and respect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carlton.
Okay. We'll tell you what, hopefully we'll catch up again sometime. God bless you.
Definitely.
Scooby-Doo.
Thank you for tuning in to another Scooby panel. I'm Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com. If you like these panels, please subscribe to my channel for more great discussions. A huge shout out to our patrons, Ross from ScoobyFan.net, Scooby-Doo of Roblox, and Ruth Elliott Hillston. If you would like to support the Scooby Panel, please go to patreon.com/ScoobyAddicts. A very special thank you to Carlton Zapp, assistant to Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera, Alexa Lawlor, host of the Unmasked History of Scooby-Doo podcast, and artist, blogger, and Scooby collector Wendy BRYDGE. Scooby Panel is available in podcast form on most podcast platforms or as a web series on YouTube. Scooby and Shaggy were voiced by Scott Innes. Check out Scott's website, onescottshop.com. Scooby Addicts artwork by Will Davenport. Video editing by Nikki Blake. Music composed and performed by Bovine Nightmares. Please join us next time for another Scooby Panel.